Welcome to Tales by Imon. Tonight's story begins on a Tuesday. The kind of mundane, forgettable Tuesday that blends into the background of your life. Until, of course, it becomes the last normal day you ever experience. My name is Michael Sullivan. At least, I think it is. As of this morning, I'm not so sure. 24 hours ago, I was just Mike. I lived in Boston, in a decent third-floor apartment in Beacon Hill. I worked as a systems analyst for a major financial tech firm, Secure Solutions, downtown. My life was a predictable, comfortable rhythm. I woke up at 6:15 a.m. I jogged the Charles River Esplanade. I grabbed a large black coffee and a bagel from the same corner deli, run by a guy named Sal, who always complained about the Red Sox but never missed a game. My existence was built on data. I analyzed risk, I mitigated digital threats, I understood the intricate web of ones and zeros that holds our modern world together. I had a 401k, a dental plan, a slightly overdue subscription to a streaming service, and a date plan for Friday with a woman named Sarah from accounting. I was, in every measurable way, Michael Sullivan. This morning, the rhythm broke. It started subtly. My alarm, the smart one connected to my home network, didn't go off. I woke up at 7:04 a.m., sweating in the sudden panic of being late. Weird. The power wasn't out. The Wi-Fi icon on the device was just gone. I rushed through my shower, skipped the jog. As I grabbed my keys, I glanced at my phone. No service. Strange. I live in the middle of Boston. I always have 5 bars. I figured it was a temporary network outage. I'd deal with it at the office. I ran down to the deli. Sal wasn't behind the counter. A young kid I'd never seen before, with earbuds in, was wiping down the espresso machine. "Hey," I said, a little out of breath. "Large black coffee, toasted everything bagel with cream cheese." The kid just stared at me. "What name?" "Name? It's Mike. Sal knows me." "Don't know no Sal," the kid mumbled. "That'll be $6.50. Annoyed, but late, I pulled out my wallet and tapped my debit card on the reader. The small screen flashed yellow, then beeped aggressively. Payment declined. I frowned. That was impossible. I'd just been paid last Friday. "Try it again," I said. He did. Payment declined. I felt a hot flush of embarrassment. "Okay, hang on." I tried my primary credit card. Declined. My backup credit card. Declined. "Dude," the kid said, losing patience. "You got cash or not?" I fumbled through my wallet. I had exactly $3 in cash. Not enough. Defeated and confused, I left the deli, coffeeless and unsettled. The no service message still glared at me from my phone. I got to the glass and steel monolith of the Secure building. I swiped my employee ID badge at the turnstile. The light flashed red. Access denied. I tried again. Red. Frank, the security guard who'd been there for 10 years, looked up from his desk. "Can I help you, sir?" "Hey, Frank. It's me, Mike. Mike Sullivan. My badge isn't working. Must be a system glitch." Frank frowned, a deep line forming between his eyebrows. He typed something into his terminal. He typed again. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't have a Michael Sullivan listed as an active employee." "What? That's crazy. I'm on the 22nd floor. Risk analysis. I've worked here for 6 years. You saw me yesterday, Frank." His eyes were cold, professional. All familiarity was gone. "Sir, my system shows this badge, number 7-4-9B, was deactivated 18 months ago and belonged to a temp worker named Jessica Riley. I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the turnstile." "Jessica?" "Frank, this is nuts. Just call up to my boss, David Chin." "There is no David Chen in the 22nd floor directory, sir. Now, I need you to leave the premises, or I will have to call Boston PD." My heart was hammering. This wasn't a glitch. This was something else. I stumbled back out onto the street, the morning commuters flowing around me like I was a rock in a stream. I needed to get online. I ran 2 blocks to a public library. The no service on my phone was starting to feel less like an outage and more like a wall. I sat down at a public terminal. The keyboard clacked loudly in the quiet room. First, my work email. I typed in my credentials. Invalid username or password. Okay. My personal email. This Google account does not exist. My social media. My bank. My streaming service. Account not found. Account not found. Account not found. It was like watching a digital version of my life being fed into a shredder. Every password failed. Every account vanished. My entire online footprint, my career, my financial history, my social connections, all gone. Wiped clean. I tried to reset a password just to see what would happen. Enter your social security number. I typed it in. The number I'd known since I was 16. The social security number you entered does not match any individual on file. I stopped breathing. This was the moment the ground dissolved beneath my feet. If the government didn't know who I was, did I even exist? Panic, cold and sharp, seized my chest. I ran out of the library. I had to get back to my apartment. My key. My physical, metal key. They couldn't digitize that. I sprinted the half-mile back to Beacon Hill, my lungs burning. I took the stairs 3 at a time. I got to my door, apartment 3B. I jammed my key into the lock. It didn't fit. It didn't just not turn. It wouldn't even slide in. The lock itself was different. The keyway was a completely different shape. I hammered on the door. Hello? Anyone in there? The door opened. A man, about my age, wearing glasses and a confused expression, stood there holding a spatula. The apartment behind him smelled like bacon. Can I help you?" he asked. "Who are you?" I demanded, pushing past him slightly. "This is my apartment." The layout was the same, but everything was wrong. The furniture was different. The pictures on the wall were of him and a blonde woman. My things, my worn leather armchair, my bookshelf, my framed blueprint of Fenway Park, all gone. "Hey," the man snapped, grabbing my arm. "You need to leave. I've lived here for 2 years. I'm calling the cops, man." "No, I live here," I yelled. "My name is Michael Sullivan." "I don't care what your name is. Get out." He shoved me back into the hallway. The door slammed shut. I heard the deadbolt click. I slid down the wall, my mind imploding. My job, my money, my home, my name, gone. I pulled out my wallet, my last remaining piece of identity. I opened it. My credit cards were there, but they were just blank pieces of plastic. The magnetic strips were wiped clean. And then I saw my driver's license. I pulled it out with a trembling hand. The photo, it was my face. The same tired eyes, the same small scar on my chin. But the name printed underneath it wasn't mine. It read, Jacob R. Harlow. The address was a P.O. box in Providence. The birth date was 3 years different from mine. I wasn't Michael Sullivan anymore. According to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I was Jacob Harlow, a man I had never heard of. I felt a sudden, icy sensation on the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched. I looked down the long, empty hallway toward the stairwell exit. 2 men were standing there. They were dressed in identical, perfectly tailored black suits. They were unremarkable, with features you forget instantly, the kind of men who blend into any crowd, any city. They weren't cops. They weren't from any agency I recognized. They were just there. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just watched me, their expressions perfectly, terrifyingly blank. They knew. They knew who I was, and they knew what they had done. They had erased Michael Sullivan in less than 3 hours. And now, they were here to collect the ghost that was left behind. The hallway shrunk. The silence from the 2 men was louder than a gunshot. It was a vacuum, pulling all the air from my lungs. My name was Jacob R. Harlow. My old life was gone. These men were here to clean up the data trail. And I was the last piece of corrupt data. I didn't think. I just ran. I scrambled away from them, toward the opposite end of the hall, toward the fire escape. I slammed my hand against the exit bar, and the alarm blared, a piercing synthetic shriek that was, for the first time in my life, a welcome sound. I burst onto the cold iron landing, the brick of the alley wall scraping my shoulder. I didn't look back. I just heard the thud of the hallway door opening behind me and the heavy, measured footsteps of the suits on the metal stairs. They weren't running. They were efficient. I hit the alley pavement, my dress shoes slipping on damp cobblestones. Beacon Hill is a maze of old-world streets, designed for horses, not high-speed chases. I knew these alleys. I used to walk them as shortcuts. Now, I was using them to save my life. I sprinted, chest burning, left on Acorn Street, right onto a narrow passage I doubted even had a name. I could hear their steps echoing, always closing, but never frantic. They were herding me. I burst out onto Charles Street, right into the lunchtime crowd. People sidestepped me, annoyed. A man yelled something as I knocked his coffee. I didn't stop. I was just another frantic Bostonian, late for something. I put 3 blocks between us before I dared to slow down, ducking into a small antique shop. I pretended to look at a tarnished silver compass, my heart trying to escape my rib cage. I watched the street. They didn't pass by. This was worse. It meant they weren't just following my line of sight. They were anticipating. They knew this city. Or, more likely, they had assets that did. My phone, still dead in my pocket, suddenly felt like a tracking beacon. I powered it off completely, the screen going black. It felt like severing my last tie. I needed to think. I was a systems analyst. I solved problems. This was a problem. Premise: Michael Sullivan is gone. Premise: Jacob R. Harlow is my new identity. Conclusion: I cannot exist as Michael Sullivan without being a threat. They hadn't just erased me. They had replaced me. Given me a new file. A new name, a new history. Why? Why not just delete me? And then I remembered. Last Thursday, Fin & Secure. I was running a deep diagnostic on the main transaction servers, looking for inefficiencies. I'd found a partition, deep in the bedrock code, that shouldn't have been there. It was masked, triple encrypted, and siphoning data. Not money, just data. Tiny, fractional packets of information, redirected to an external, untraceable node. I thought it was sophisticated corporate espionage. I started to dig. I managed to decrypt the root directory name. It wasn't a string of code. It was a word. Errata, Latin, meaning errors or things to be corrected. Before I could get any further, my system access was remotely rebooted. David Chen, my boss, who apparently doesn't exist, called me. He'd seemed nervous. "Leave it, Mike," he'd said. "It's a legacy partition. A ghost in the machine. It's above our pay grade. Just mark it as a stable anomaly and move on." I did. Or, I pretended to. I reported it as resolved. But I didn't stop looking. I made a copy of the partition's access log. I hadn't even looked at it yet. It was on a SandGap drive, a physical, offline USB stick, that I kept in a small fireproof safe in my apartment. My apartment. The apartment that now belonged to a man making bacon. My blood ran cold. The safe. The drive. If they were overriding my life, they were definitely hunting for my data. Those men weren't just here for me. They were here for that drive. And they were probably tearing apart apartment 3B right now. This was good. It meant I had something they wanted. It meant I had leverage. But it also meant the man with the spatula was in terrible danger. I couldn't help him. I couldn't even help myself. I was a ghost. I looked down at the driver's license in my hand. Jacob R. Harlow. P.O. Box 114, Providence, Rhode Island. It wasn't a replacement. It was a clue. Or a trap. When you erase a file, you don't just delete it, you mark its space as available to be overwritten. My life had been overwritten. But they assigned me a new pointer. Jacob Harlow. Was this part of the protocol? A standardized disposal method? Create a new, flimsy identity in a new city. Give the deleted person a place to run. It isolates them. It makes them predictable. They would be waiting for me in Providence. But what choice did I have? I couldn't be Michael Sullivan. The entire system, the banks, the police, the government, was now designed to reject that name. To be Michael Sullivan was to be, literally, an error. An errata. I had to be Jacob. I stepped out of the antique shop. The air felt different. Colder. I was outside the system. I was unplugged. I had $3 in cash, a dead phone, and a fake ID. Providence was 50 miles away. I couldn't take a bus or a train. They would be watching the terminals. I couldn't use a credit card. I couldn't call Sarah or any of my friends. Their numbers were on my phone. And even if I remembered them, calling them would just paint a target on their backs. I was utterly, completely alone. I started walking south, blending into the foot traffic heading toward Boston Common. I needed to get off the peninsula. I'd walk. I'd walk all night if I had to. I passed a newsstand. The front page of the Herald was about the upcoming election. The Globe was about a new tech merger. The world was still turning. The data was flowing. No one knew a file had just been permanently deleted. I passed a mirror in a closed shop window. I stopped. The man staring back at me was pale, terrified, his hair a mess. He was wearing Michael Sullivan's clothes. He looked hunted. He looked like a problem. I needed to stop looking like Mike. I had $3. Not enough for a thrift store. I ducked into an alley and ripped off my work lanyard, shoving it deep into a dumpster. I took off my blue blazer, the one I always wore for meetings. I turned it inside out, revealing the plain black lining, and put it back on. It looked strange, but less like a young professional. I untucked my shirt and messed up my hair, trying to look less like a systems analyst and more like a guy who'd had a rough night. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I was no longer Mike. I was Jacob. And Jacob was a ghost, heading south, hunting for the one string of code that might explain why he existed at all. Walking out of Boston is harder than it sounds. The city is a web. Highways, bridges, tunnels, every artery is monitored. Every major intersection has a camera. Not just a traffic cam, but the smart ones. The ones with facial recognition software. The kind my old firm used to pitch security upgrades for. I knew their capabilities. They could scan a crowd of thousands and find a single face in seconds, provided they had a clear query. And right now, the query would be Michael Sullivan. Or maybe Jacob R. Harlow. I was a walking data point, and I was broadcasting on every frequency. I couldn't stay on the main roads. I had to find the system's backdoors, its unmonitored service ports. In the physical world, that meant alleys, utility corridors, and, most importantly, the train tracks. I cut through the south end, sticking to the narrow, brick-lined alleys that smelled of dumpsters and stale beer. The further south I got, the more industrial the landscape became. The cobblestones gave way to cracked pavement and chain-link fences. I found what I was looking for near the Newmarket rail yards. A stretch of the MBTA commuter rail line heading south. The Providence/Stoughton line. It was perfect. I scrambled up a gravel embankment, my useless dress shoes sliding on the loose stones. The air was colder here, away from the dense thermal mass of the downtown buildings. The sun was beginning to dip, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. I started walking. My world narrowed to the few feet in front of me. The creosote smell of the railroad ties. The crunch of ballast rock under my feet. The metallic tang of the rails. My mind, however, was racing. This wasn't random. The Errata partition. The two men in suits. The instant, total erasure. This was a protocol. A contingency plan. I had stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to see, and the system had automatically corrected the error. I wasn't just fired. I was patched. But why the Jacob Harlow identity? As a systems analyst, I know you don't just delete data, especially not a complex, interconnected file like a human life. It leaves a vacuum. It creates reference errors in every database it ever touched. Bank records, tax returns, credit scores. My absence would be a louder anomaly than my presence. So, they didn't delete. They redirected. Every pointer in the global database that once pointed to Michael Sullivan now pointed to a null value, or, in the case of my physical body, to Jacob R. Harlow. It was a clean solution. A redirect script from hell. The question was, who wrote the script? Fin and Secure? Unlikely. They were a tech firm. But this was government level. This was clandestine. This was a power I had never even considered. I walked for hours. My feet were blistering. The inside-out blazer did little to stop the wind. Hunger was a dull, persistent ache. My $3 felt like a cruel joke. I passed under a highway overpass. The roar of traffic above me was deafening. For a second, I was invisible. I leaned against a concrete pylon, catching my breath. That's when I saw the car. It was parked on the access road just above the embankment, about 50 yards away. A black sedan, standard law enforcement model, but with no markings. It was just sitting there, its engine off, perfectly positioned to watch this exact stretch of track. My heart stopped. Were they waiting for me? Did they predict I would use the tracks? I didn't move. I forced my breathing to slow. The concrete was cold against my back. I was in deep shadow. They couldn't see me, not unless they had thermal. I waited. 1 minute. 5. A figure stepped out of the car. He wasn't in a suit. He was wearing tactical gear. He raised a pair of binoculars and scanned the tracks, first north, then south. He was looking for me. This wasn't just a cleanup. This wasn't just two guys in suits. This was a full-scale manhunt. and they were using the logic I would use. They knew their target was a systems analyst. They knew he would avoid the grid. He got back in the car, but it didn't drive away. It just sat there, waiting. I was trapped. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't go back. I looked around, frantic. To my left, the embankment was too steep. To my right, a drainage culvert, half filled with stagnant water and trash. It was my only option. I slid down the gravel, my hands scraping on the rock, and ducked into the mouth of the concrete tunnel. The smell hit me instantly, a foul mix of algae, rot, and chemicals. I waded in. The water was icy, soaking through my pants and filling my shoes. I pushed deeper into the blackness, until the sound of the highway was a distant hum and the stench was all-encompassing. I pressed myself against the slimy wall, shivering, and waited. I don't know how long I was in there. It felt like an eternity. Every rat skittering in the dark, every drip of water, sounded like a boot step. This was the reality of being unplugged. The freedom of being off the grid was a cold, wet, concrete tunnel. Eventually, I heard the car start. I heard it drive away. I waited another 10 minutes, just to be sure. Then, I slowly, painfully, waded back out. I was soaked, filthy, and shaking violently from the cold. But I was alive, and I was still free. I climbed the embankment and started walking again, south. My old life was a distant dream. Mike Sullivan liked comfortable apartments and craft beer. He worried about deadlines and 401k matching. Jacob Harlow lived in tunnels. He wore his clothes inside out. He understood that the real world wasn't the one on the screen. The real world was the code underneath it. The hard, unforgiving infrastructure. I was no longer Michael Sullivan. I was accepting that. My mission wasn't to get my old life back. That was impossible. My mission was to find out who, or what, the Errata was. My mission was to find out why I was corrected. I was a ghost, and it was time to haunt the machine that had tried to delete me. Providence was still a long way off, but I had all night. And for the first time, I wasn't just running. I was hunting. The sun rose over the South Shore suburbs, a thin, watery light that did nothing to warm me. I was a walking block of ice. My clothes, soaked from the culvert, had stiffened in the pre-dawn chill. Every step was a painful, crunching effort. My dress shoes were ruined, the soles flapping. My feet were a raw pulp of blisters. Hunger was a physical claw in my stomach. Thirst was a layer of sandpaper in my throat. I was Michael Sullivan, a man who just 2 days ago had debated the merits of artisanal pour-over coffee. Now I was Jacob Harlow, a creature of the railway ballast, and I would have committed a felony for a bottle of tap water and a stale donut. I had to get off the tracks. The morning commuter trains would be starting soon, and with them, more eyes. More patrols. I exited the rail line in Canton, a few miles south of the city, and stumbled into the waking streets of a sleepy suburb. I still had my $3. I found a 24-hour convenience store, a bright, fluorescent box on a dark road. I paused at the door. Cameras. One on the register, one in the back corner, one dome on the ceiling. I pulled my inside-out blazer tighter, kept my head down, and walked in. The clerk, a young guy half asleep, didn't look up from his phone. I grabbed the largest bottle of water I could find. $1.99. I had $1 left. I scanned the food. Nothing was $1. Except, on a bottom shelf, a single, foil-wrapped protein bar. 99 cents. Energy. The label was faded. It was probably 6 months expired. I put the items on the counter. The total was $3.23 with tax. My heart sank. I didn't have enough. I started to put the bar back. Just the water, I mumbled, my voice hoarse. Hey. The clerk looked at me. He took in my wet clothes, my ruined shoes, the way I was shaking. He sighed, annoyed, and scanned the water. Then he scanned the bar. Then he hit a button on his register. Discount. Total is $2.98. I stared at him. He'd seen a bum, not a fugitive. For the first time, my new appearance was an asset. Thanks, I whispered. I paid with my 3 crumpled bills, got 2 pennies back, and fled. Outside, I tore the wrapper off the bar and devoured it in 3 bites. It tasted like sweetened cardboard and chalk. The water was the best thing I'd ever tasted. The fuel gave me just enough clarity to keep moving. Providence was still miles away. I couldn't walk it. Not like this. I saw a local bus pulling up to a stop. To Pawtucket, the sign read. That was on the border of Providence. I got on. The driver eyed me, but my 2 pennies were still in my hand. Just need to get out of the cold, man, I said. Riding till my money runs out. It was a lie that sounded true. He grunted. Bus fare is $2. I don't have it. Then you can't ride. I was about to step off, defeated, when an older woman in a nurse's uniform, sitting in the front seat, held up $1. I'll spot him, she said. I looked at her, stunned. I can't. Just pay it forward, son, she said, not meeting my eyes. The driver sighed, took her $1 and my pennies. It still wasn't enough, but he waved me on. Just sit in the back. Don't cause trouble. I collapsed onto the cold plastic seat. I was a ghost, relying on the random charity of the system I was hiding from. I watched the suburbs blur by, my paranoia fighting with my exhaustion. I didn't sleep. I just watched every car that passed, every person who got on. I got off in Pawtucket and walked the last few miles. Providence, Rhode Island, greeted me just after 10 a.m. It was smaller than Boston, all old brick and low-slung buildings. But the surveillance was the same. Cameras on the traffic lights. Ring doorbells on every porch. The grid was everywhere. My ID said P.O. Box 114. I found the nearest post office. It was a large, imposing granite building downtown. The lobby was full of people, full of federal security cameras. This was the test. I couldn't just walk in. Michael Sullivan was a digital ghost. Jacob R. Harlow was a physical one. If I was on a watch list, the second my face was scanned, it was over. I watched the building for an hour from a coffee shop across the street, nursing a cup of cold water I'd filled in their bathroom. The flow of people was constant. There were 2 guards inside the main doors. This wasn't a bank. They didn't check IDs just to enter. The P.O. boxes were in a separate alcove, open to the lobby. I had to risk it. I crossed the street, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs. I kept my head down, but not too low. You don't look suspicious. You look bored. You look like you belong. I walked past the guards. They didn't move. I entered the alcove. The walls were lined with hundreds of small brass doors. I found the 100 series. I found 114. It was a small 6x6 box. It had a key lock. This was the problem. The ID card, Jacob R. Harlow, had been in my wallet. My Michael Sullivan wallet. My keys, my apartment key, my office key, they were all on my keychain. A keychain I had dropped in the alley when I was running from the men in suits. I stared at the lock. They had erased my life. They had given me a new ID, but they hadn't given me the key. Was this the end of the line? Was this a logical dead end? No. A system analyst doesn't just check the front end. He checks the source code. I ran my fingers over the cold brass. I pulled the ID from my wallet. Asterisk Jacob R. Harlow. P.O. Box 114. Asterisk. Maybe the ID was the key. I looked closer at the box. There was no keyhole. It was a combination lock, designed to look like a keyhole from a distance. A clever bit of security theater. I looked at the ID again. My birth date. The fake one. August 14th, 1989. I tried it. 8 right. 14 left. 89 right. The lock clicked. A cold wave of adrenaline washed over me. It was a script. I was following a predetermined path, laid out for me by the very people who erased me. They wanted me to come here. They wanted me to open this box. I pulled the small metal door open. The box was empty. Almost. In the very back, taped to the bottom, was a single, small, silver key. The kind you'd use for a padlock or a diary. Taped next to it was a small slip of paper, like from a fortune cookie. On it, printed in simple blocky text, was one word, pendulum. That was it. A key. And a word. I grabbed them, shut the P.O. box, and spun the dial. I turned to leave. And I saw him. He was standing across the lobby, by the wanted posters. He wasn't in a suit. He was dressed like a bike messenger, cargo shorts despite the cold, a beanie, a messenger bag slung over his chest. He was pretending to read a poster, but his eyes were on me. He wasn't one of the men from Boston. This was someone new. He knew I'd been to the box. He was watching me, confirming. I walked out of the post office, my skin crawling. I didn't run. I just walked. He didn't follow. He just watched me go. The test was over. I had passed. I had taken the bait. Now, I was in level 2 of the maze. The man in the beanie didn't follow me. That was the most terrifying part. I walked for 3 blocks, my mind screaming, every nerve fiber expecting a hand on my shoulder, the scuff of a boot behind me. Nothing. I ducked into an alley between a sandwich shop and a jeweler, pressing my back against the cold brick, just to watch the street. He didn't appear. This wasn't a chase. It was a test. I had collected my prize from the P.O. box. The man in the beanie was just a proctor, marking complete on a checklist. They weren't just following me, they were allowing me. They were letting the string out on the reel, letting me run, knowing they held the other end. I was in their maze. The key and the note were the next set of instructions. Pendulum. It was an abstract breadcrumb. It could mean anything. A person, a place, a code word. The key was physical. It was for a lock. My job was to find the lock. I was still cold, still starving. The adrenaline from the post office was fading, leaving a hollow, aching exhaustion. I needed information, and I had no phone, no data, no money. There was only one place to go. The place I'd gone to in Boston when my world first ended, a public library. The Providence Public Library was an impressive, old-world building, a mix of grand marble and modern glass. It was also a massive security risk. But this was the game. They were giving me clues that could only be solved using the very grid I was trying to avoid. They were forcing me to make noise, forcing me to create a data trail they could follow. I walked in, a ghost in a palace of information. I looked even worse now than I had in Canton. My clothes were dry but stiff with filth. My face was smudged with dirt from the culvert. The librarian at the main desk gave me a look of profound pity and disapproval, but she didn't stop me. In the public library, all are welcome, even the broken. I found the public computer terminals. They were all in an open plan room. No privacy. I sat at a terminal in the corner, giving me a view of the room and the entrance. I logged in as a guest. The clock on the screen said 11:32 a.m. My fingers flew over the keyboard. I didn't search for Michael Sullivan. That name was a digital landmine. I didn't search for Errata. That word was invisible. I searched for my new name, Jacob R. Harlow. The search engine returned nothing. No social media, no news articles, no property records. I tried a deep dive public records search. No results found. This was fascinating. They hadn't built me a legend. They hadn't created a fake history, a fake college, a fake job. Jacob R. Harlow did not exist in the public world. The identity was a ghost file, a container that existed only within the internal systems of the people running this. The post office, the state ID bureau. It was an access key, not a person. It was meant to be untraceable by a civilian. This meant they were professionals. They didn't make noise. They didn't build elaborate fictions. They just edited the permissions. Okay, next. I searched pendulum. The screen flooded with 150 million results. Physics. Edgar Allan Poe. Clocks. I narrowed it. Pendulum Providence. The results were much smaller. An engineering firm. A physics lecturer at Brown University. A new age shop that sold crystals. And a bar. The Pendulum Lounge. I clicked the link. It didn't even have a real website. Just a basic directory listing. A single grainy photo of a faded neon sign showing a martini glass swinging like a pendulum. The address was on Dyer Street, in the Old Jewelry District, an area of town known for its half-empty warehouses and old school bars. It was the kind of place that had been there for 50 years, the kind of place that still had regulars, Formica countertops, and a stubborn resistance to the digital age. The kind of place that would still use a physical key. This was it. It had to be. I looked at the small, silver key in my palm. It wasn't a door key. It was a utility key. A locker key. A strongbox key. The Pendulum Lounge. I logged out, wiping the browser history, clearing the cache. It was a pointless gesture. I knew they were watching the network traffic. I knew that the moment I searched Pendulum Providence, an alert probably pinged on some analyst's computer. Asterisk, Asset 749B is en route to stage 3. Asterisk. I didn't care. I was playing. I left the library. Dyer Street was a 15-minute walk. As I walked, I finally had time to process. This was not a punishment. A punishment would be a bullet in an alley. This was something else. A test. a recruitment, an incredibly cruel experiment. When I found the Errata partition, I hadn't just seen something I shouldn't have. I had understood it. I was a systems analyst who had spotted their backdoor. Maybe they didn't just want to correct me. Maybe they wanted to see how I worked. They erased my life to see what I would do. They gave me a new, broken one to see how I would do it. I turned onto Dyer Street. It was quiet. Old brick facades, wide, empty sidewalks. The neon sign of the Pendulum Lounge was dark, unlit in the daylight. The bar itself was at street level, its windows blacked out. A thin, handwritten sign on the door said, "Open at 4 p.m. It was 12:10 p.m. I was stuck. I couldn't loiter. A dirty, shivering man hanging around a closed bar for 4 hours is a great way to get a visit from the police. And I had a feeling a Jacob R. Harlow with a fake ID wouldn't fare well with a cop. I walked past the bar. In the alley beside it, there was a metal side door, painted black, with multiple deadbolts. A delivery entrance. I felt it again. The tingle on my neck. I looked across the street. A man was sitting in a parked sedan. Not the beanie guy. This one was in a gray windbreaker. He was just watching. Another proctor. They knew I was here. They knew I'd found the place. And they knew it was closed. This was part of the test. What do you do when you hit a firewall? Do you wait for it to open? Or do you find a port? I kept walking, turning the corner. I couldn't go back to the library. I couldn't stay on the street. I was out of options, exhausted and cornered. And then I saw it. 2 buildings down from the bar. A homeless shelter. The Crossroads Mission. A line of men and women were waiting outside for the lunch service. It was the perfect cover. A place to disappear. A place to get a meal and get out of the cold. A place to wait. I, Jacob R. Harlow, the ghost, walked over and got in line with the other ghosts of the grid. The line for the Crossroads Mission moved slowly. I was an imposter among the truly dispossessed. These were people whose lives had been erased by poverty, by addiction, by sickness, by 1,000 tiny, brutal failures. My life was erased by a single, digital command. But here in this line, the result was the same. We were all invisible. A woman with a tired face and a clipboard stood at the door. "Name?" she asked the man in front of me. "Samuel," he mumbled. "Last name, Samuel? Don't got one today." She sighed and ticked a box. Then it was my turn. Her eyes scanned my filthy, inside-out blazer and ruined shoes. "Name?" "Jacob," I said. My voice was a rasp. "Jacob." Just Jacob. Using Harlow felt wrong. It felt like using a key in the wrong lock. Jacob was safer. Jacob was nobody. She nodded, not caring, and ticked another box. Lunch and warm-up, till 4 p.m. No sleeping in the hall. You know the rules. I know them, I lied. I was in. The room was huge, a converted warehouse or a church gymnasium, smelling of industrial strength cleaner, boiled coffee, and unwashed bodies. It was warm. The glorious, oppressive, artificial heat was the first comfortable thing I'd felt in 36 hours. Long tables were set up. A line snaked toward a counter where volunteers in hairnets were slopping a thick, gray stew into plastic bowls. I got my tray. Stew, a stale roll, and a cup of water. I found a seat at the end of a table, in a corner, facing the entrance. I ate slowly, forcing myself. My body, which had been running on pure adrenaline, was finally getting fuel. With the fuel came a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. I was camouflaged. The watcher in the gray windbreaker couldn't follow me in here. This was a blind spot in the grid. A human firewall. They could watch the doors, but in here, I was just another Jacob. First time. I looked up. An older man sat across from me. He had a face like a dried-up riverbed, but his eyes were startlingly clear and intelligent. He wasn't eating, just nursing a cup of coffee. "Is it that obvious?" I asked. "You're watching the door," he said. "Everyone else is watching their food. You're not hungry. You're waiting. And you're scared." I didn't say anything. I just gripped my plastic cup. "Name's Arthur," he said, holding out a hand rough as sandpaper. I shook it. "Jacob." "Well, just Jacob," he said with a knowing half-smile. "Welcome to the Crossroads. It's a system, you know, just like the one you fell out of." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "This place," he gestured with his cup. "It's not chaos. It's a machine. They got intake, processing, resource allocation, and disposal. He pointed at the clipboard woman. That's your firewall. The volunteers, that's your user interface. The clock on the wall, that's the system clock. At 4 p.m., the protocol runs, and everyone gets logged out. He was speaking my language, the language of a systems analyst. I started. You're not like the others. Neither are you, son, Arthur said. I used to be a project manager, big tech firm, had a corner office, had a boat. He laughed, a dry, rattling sound. I saw the code, too. The real code. The one that runs under the one everyone sees. The one that says a man's value is his last quarter's profit margin. My numbers went bad. So, they deprovisioned my access. Sound familiar? I just stared at him. He couldn't know. He was just a smart, broken man using a metaphor. He leaned in, his voice low. You look like I did. You look like you just found out the game is rigged. Let me tell you something, Jacob. The game's not just rigged. The board is alive, and it doesn't like it when the pieces move on their own. They're watching me, I whispered. I don't know why I said it. Of course they are, Arthur said, as if it were obvious. They're always watching. The proctors. The people who make sure that errors get corrected. There it was. That word again. Errors. Errata. Who are they? I asked. Arthur shrugged. Doesn't matter. It's not a who. It's a what. It's the system itself. The great errata, as the old Romans would say. The part of the machine that corrects the mistakes. You and me, Jacob, we're the mistakes. We saw something we shouldn't have, or we didn't perform to spec. So, we're here, in the recycling bin. I looked at my hands. They were shaking. How do you get out? You don't, he said flatly. You just stop being an error. You accept the new parameters. You become a ghost. You stop trying to get your old life back. That file's been deleted. You're just garbage code now. The less you run, the less the system notices you. He was wrong. I knew he was wrong. They hadn't just deleted me. They hadn't thrown me in the recycling bin. They had given me a new name, a new file path. They had given me a key. They're not trying to delete me, I said, thinking aloud. They're testing me. Arthur's sharp eyes fixed on mine. Testing you? For what? I don't know. A job. He was silent for a long time. Then he laughed, louder this time. Well, aren't you a special kind of pawn? You think you're being interviewed. I like that. He stood up, his knees cracking. Be careful, Jacob. When the system interviews you, there's only one pass grade. Everything else is fail. And fail is permanent. He walked away, dumping his cup in the trash. I sat there. My purpose was clear. Arthur was a cautionary tale. He was the fail state. He had accepted his deletion. He had let the system win. I wouldn't. I was an analyst. I was being given a problem. The errata wasn't a punishment. It was a final exam. I watched the clock on the wall. 2:17 p.m. 3:05 p.m. 3:45 p.m. I used the shelter's bathroom to wash my face and hands. The cold water was a shock. I looked in the cracked, stainless steel mirror. The man looking back was still Jacob Harlow. Filthy. Exhausted. But his eyes, my eyes, they weren't scared anymore. They were angry. They were focused. At 3:55 p.m., I walked to the door. The clipboard woman was already shooing people out. 4 p.m. Hall is closed. Dinner is at 6. I stepped out onto the street. The air was sharp, and the sun was low, painting the city in long cold shadows. I looked across the street. The gray windbreaker and his sedan were gone. The stage was clear. The proctor had left. I walked the 2 blocks back to Dyer Street. At 4:01 p.m., the neon sign of the Pendulum Lounge sputtered to life, casting a sickly pink glow on the pavement. A low, electric buzz hung in the air. The door was unlocked. I pulled my inside-out blazer tight. I was fed. I was warm. I was ready. I pushed open the heavy, black door. A small bell, a relic from another age, tinkled above my head. The bar was dark, smelling of stale beer, polish, and something I couldn't place. Something old. A few old men sat at the bar, hunched over their drinks. The bartender, a big man with a thick beard, was wiping a glass. He looked up, his expression blank. "We're open," he grunted. I stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind me, the sound final. The outside world was gone. I was in. My eyes adjusted to the gloom. The Pendulum Lounge was a museum of a bygone era. Dark wood, cracked red vinyl booths, a long, scarred bar. The only light came from the buzzing neon sign outside and a few dim, yellow bulbs over the bar. The air was thick with a silence that felt older than the building. The bartender, whose name tag read Gus, placed the glass he was cleaning onto a shelf. He didn't look at me again. He just waited. I didn't belong. My homeless camouflage, which had worked perfectly at the mission, was a glaring spotlight here. The regulars, 3 old men at the far end of the bar, didn't even turn. They were fixtures, part of the architecture. This was a place where people came to be invisible, but they had to be the right kind of invisible. I walked to the bar, my ruined shoes making a sticky peeling sound on the floor. I sat on a stool, keeping a distance from the regulars. Gus ambled over. He was built like a refrigerator. His eyes were flat, like 2 polished stones. "What'll it be?" His voice was a low rumble. I don't have any money," I said. Gus didn't even blink. He just stared at me. "Then you're in the wrong place. This ain't a shelter." "I'm not here to drink," I said, my voice quiet. "I'm looking for a box." This got a reaction. A tiny one. Gus stopped wiping the counter. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. He took in my face, the scar on my chin, the exhaustion. "Lot of boxes in the world, kid," he said. "Get lost." He was another gatekeeper. Another firewall. I had to provide the right credentials. I put my hands on the bar. I opened my left palm. The small, silver key sat in the center. "It's for a lockbox," I said. Gus's eyes dropped to the key. He looked at it for a long, hard second. He looked back at my face. His expression didn't change, but the quality of his attention did. It was no longer dismissal. It was analysis. He grunted. "Never seen it." He turned his back to me and started rinsing another glass. This was the test. Was he lying? Was this a dead end? No. This was a challenge. He was testing my resolve. He was waiting for the password. The other half of the key. "Pendulum," I said, loud enough for him to hear. The running water from the tap was the only sound. Gus's wide back was still to me. He slowly, deliberately, turned off the tap. He dried his hands on a dirty rag. He turned around. "Back room," he rumbled. "Left wall. You got 5 minutes." He jerked his head toward a dark hallway behind the bar, next to a door marked restrooms. I slid off the stool. My heart was a drum. As I walked past the bar, Gus didn't look at me. He just started wiping the counter again, a perfect loop. The 3 old men didn't move. It was as if I wasn't even there. I was a bit of data being passed through a port, and they were just the background processes. I went down the dark, narrow hall. It smelled of bleach and old plumbing. There was a door at the end. It was unlocked. I opened it. The room was a small, windowless office. A cluttered desk, a filing cabinet, and a wall of old metal lockers. The kind you'd see in a school gym, but older, painted a drab green. Most were sealed shut with rust. But a row in the middle looked functional. I started trying the key. The first lock, A1, it didn't fit. A2, no. I looked closer. These weren't numbered. They had symbols. A star, a moon, a square, and one, A7, had a small, faint etching of a circle with a line through it. A simple, abstract representation of a pendulum. I slid the key into the lock. It fit. It turned, smooth as silk. The locker door creaked open. Inside, there was a single item. A plain, manila envelope, thick and heavy. My name was written on the front. Not Michael Sullivan. Not Jacob R. Harlow. It just said, Errata. My breath caught. I was Errata. I was the mistake. Or, I was the one who fixed the mistakes. I wasn't a pawn. I was a candidate. I grabbed the envelope. I could feel the contents. A thick rectangle, like a passport. A thin, flexible one, like a credit card. And a small, hard object, like a USB drive. I didn't open it. Not here. This was a secure Dropbox, but it wasn't a safe house. I shut the locker, relocked it, and pulled the key out. I walked back down the hall. The bar was exactly as I'd left it. The regulars in the same position. Gus wiping the same spot on the counter. I walked up to him. He looked at me, expressionless. I put the small silver key on the bar and pushed it toward him. "Thanks," I said. He looked at the key, then at me. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice flat. He picked up the key, dropped it into a jar of murky pickle brine behind the counter, and went back to washing a glass. The transaction was over. The connection was closed. I turned and walked out. The bell tinkled. The cold, late afternoon air hit my face. I was back on the street, back in the grid. I clutched the envelope under my blazer. It felt hot, like it was radioactive. I was exposed. I couldn't stay here. I had the package. The proctors, the watchers, they would know I had it. The test wasn't over. This was the extraction phase. I looked across the street. The gray sedan was back. The man in the windbreaker was in the driver's seat. And this time, he wasn't just watching. His car door opened. He stepped out, and he was holding a phone to his ear. He looked directly at me. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't observing. He was pointing. He was pointing right at me, talking into the phone. And from the alley down the street, 2 new men appeared. These men were not like the watchers. They were not in suits, not in casual wear. They were big. They were dressed in dark blue work pants and hoodies. And they were moving fast. This wasn't a test. This was a hostile takeover. Gus. The pendulum. Was this all a trap? Errata. Were there 2 groups? The one testing me, and another one trying to intercept me? It didn't matter. I ran. There is no thought, only animal instinct. I ran. The 2 men were fast. They moved with a heavy, deliberate, ground-eating pace. They weren't analysts or proctors. They were muscle. They were the system's brute force attack. I clutched the envelope under my blazer, the hard corners of its contents digging into my ribs. I sprinted down Dyer Street, toward the river. The man in the windbreaker was back in his car, the engine revving. He was going to cut me off at the intersection. I was trapped in a 3-point maneuver. 2 on foot, 1 on wheels. I did the only thing I could. I cut left, into an alley, not even knowing if it was a throughway. The brick walls closed in. The smell of garbage. It was a dead end. A solid 10-foot chain link fence topped with barbed wire blocked the path. I was cornered. The first man, the one in the gray hoodie, skidded into the alley. He grinned. He wasn't even out of breath. "End of the line, Errata," he growled. He knew the name. This wasn't a random mugging. This wasn't a different faction. They were part of it. Or, they were a rival part. A different program, trying to access the same data. The second man blocked the alley's entrance. The man in the windbreaker sedan idled on the street, blocking any escape. "Give us the package," Gray Hoodie said, advancing slowly. He cracked his knuckles. I had no leverage. I had no weapons. I had my mind, and it was screaming. Think. Think like a system. They saw a dead end. I saw a physical environment. I looked up. A rusty fire escape ladder, its bottom rung a good 8 feet off the ground. Gray Hoodie lunged. I didn't try to fight him. I used his own momentum. I sidestepped, grabbing an overflowing metal trash can. I heaved it, not at him, but in front of him. He stumbled over it, a cascade of rotting food and aluminum cans spilling across the pavement. It bought me 2 seconds. I turned to the wall. I used the lid of a dumpster as a springboard, my ruined dress shoes finding just enough purchase. I jumped, my fingers catching the cold, iron rung of the fire escape. My body screamed in protest. My shoulders felt like they were being ripped from their sockets. I hung there, a piñata. The second man, the one at the entrance, was running at me. He grabbed my ankle. His grip was like a steel trap. I kicked, frantically. I stomped my free foot onto the back of his hand. He grunted in pain but didn't let go. The first man was up, scrambling over the trash. He was coming for me. I did the only thing I could. I let go with one hand, the manila envelope still clutched in the other, and I punched down. I punched the hand that was holding my ankle. It was a weak, flailing hit, but it was pure desperation. His grip loosened, just a fraction. It was enough. I yanked my leg free, scrambled up the ladder, and collapsed onto the first landing. "He's getting away," one of them yelled. I didn't wait. I got up and climbed. I climbed until I was on the roof of the 4-story building. I ran across the flat, tar-papered roof. The sun was setting, casting the city in a deep, blood-orange light. I could hear them on the fire escape below, their heavy footsteps clanging on the metal. I ran to the edge. The next building was lower, a 10-foot drop. I didn't hesitate. I jumped, landing hard, rolling on my shoulder to absorb the impact. The envelope was safe. I was in a maze of rooftops. I ran, I jumped, I climbed. I was no longer a systems analyst. I was a rat, and they were the exterminators. I finally found a ladder that led down into another alley, 3 blocks away. I slid down, my hands burning. I hit the pavement and didn't stop running. I ran until my lungs were on fire and my legs were jelly. I ran until I found a place of transition, a place of noise and anonymity, the Providence bus terminal. I ducked inside, my body screaming. The terminal was chaos. People shouting, announcements echoing. I was just another piece of data in a high-traffic stream. I hid. I found the restrooms and locked myself in a stall. I sat on the toilet, my head in my hands, gasping. I was alive. I was still holding the envelope. I waited until my heart rate returned to something resembling normal. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely tear the metal clasp. I ripped the envelope open and dumped the contents onto my lap. First, a passport. A clean, blank, official United States passport. The name, photo, and data fields were all empty. It was a ready-to-be-written file. Second, a matte black card. No name, no number, just a chip and on the back, a single, embossed word, Errata. Third, a small, black burner phone. It looked cheap, but felt heavy. And last, a tiny, silver USB drive. It looked familiar. It looked exactly like the sand-gapped drive I'd kept in my safe. The one with a copy of the Errata partition's access log. They hadn't just erased me. They had given me a new identity, a new line of credit, a new phone, and they had returned the data I had stolen from them. This wasn't a punishment. This wasn't a test. This was a job offer. This was my orientation packet. I picked up the phone. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a normal smart screen. It was black, with a single, green, blinking cursor at the top. A command line. A text message, no, a line of code, appeared on the screen, as if being typed by an invisible user. System. Asset 749B. Errata. Acquired. Phase 3 initiated. A pause. Then, a new line. System. Hostile intercept detected. Do you require support? Y/N. I stared at the screen. The hostile intercept was the men in the alley. The testers who had set up the P.O. box and the lounge. They were a different group. Or they were the same group, and the men in the alley were the real test. A test of my physical abilities. A final exam after the logic puzzles. No. Gus's warning. Arthur's paranoia. The men's use of the name Errata. This was a schism, a fight within the system. And I was a rogue file, a key, that both sides wanted. The men in the hoodies, the hostile intercept, were trying to steal me. The system I was running from was now offering to protect me. The cursor blinked. Do you require support? Y/N. I was a ghost. A mistake. An error. I had a choice. I could stay a ghost, running from everyone. Or I could plug back in. I could accept the support. I could become Errata. My finger hovered over the keypad. I typed one letter. Y. I hit the enter key. The screen flashed. A new line appeared. System. Support dispatched. Await contact. Secure the package. The screen went black. The bus terminal bathroom was a circle of hell. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the floor was sticky, and the smell of disinfectant couldn't hide the decay. I was still shaking, the adrenaline from the rooftop chase souring in my stomach. I locked the stall door. Support dispatched. Await contact. Support. The word felt alien. For the last 36 hours, I had been the system's singular enemy. Now, I was an asset under its protection. But protected from who? The men in the hoodies, the hostile intercept, clearly wanted what I had. They knew the name Errata. This was an internal war, and I was the trigger. I had to secure the package. I couldn't just walk around with a manila envelope. I sat on the toilet lid and inventoried my new life. One blank passport. I tucked this into the inside outlining of my blazer, in the inner breast pocket. It was a flimsy, useless document until the system decided to write my new name on it. One matte black Errata card. It was heavier than a credit card. No magnetic strip. Just the chip. A key. For what? I had no idea. I slipped it out of my ruined wallet and into my left shoe, under the sole. It was uncomfortable, a constant, hard reminder of my new reality. One silver USB drive. The Errata log. The reason my life as Michael Sullivan was terminated. The most dangerous item in my possession. I pulled off my right shoe, pulled down my filthy sock, and tucked the drive flat against my ankle. It was small. It would go unnoticed in a basic pat-down. One burner phone. My lifeline. My new master. I was done. I was Jacob Harlow, a man with his assets hidden, ready to move. I stuffed the empty manila envelope deep into the sanitary disposal bin. No trace. I stepped out of the stall and looked at myself in the cracked mirror. The man from the mission. The ghost. It wasn't enough. The men in the hoodies had seen this face, this inside-out blazer. I saw a discarded sweatshirt on the floor by a trash can. It was gray, stained, but it was different. I took off my blazer, turned it right side out again, and put the sweatshirt on over my shirt, and the blazer over that. It was a marginal change, but it broke the profile. I walked out into the terminal's main concourse. The noise hit me like a wall. People everywhere, running for buses, waiting in lines, sleeping on benches. Every face was a potential threat. Every person talking on a phone was a spotter. The man in the windbreaker. The men in the hoodies. They could be anywhere. My new phone, silent in my pocket, suddenly buzzed. Not a ring, just a single, sharp vibration. I pulled it out. The black screen with the green cursor was waiting. System, proceed to Bay 14. Board bus 54, Fox Point. Departing in 3 minutes. Sit in the rear, window seat, right side. The instructions were precise. They were watching. Not just the terminal, but me. They had to have a visual. How? I scanned the ceiling. The security cameras. The public DOT cams. Of course. They were in the terminal system. They were watching me through the building's own eyes. I was a cursor on their screen. I walked, not too fast, toward Bay 14. I saw the sign, 54, Fox Point. A local route. It was perfect. Not a long-haul bus to another state, which would be a major checkpoint. Just a local commuter. I got on. The driver barely looked at me. I had no money. I remembered the nurse on the bus from Canton. I didn't have to worry. The phone buzzed. System. Payment processed. I looked at the driver. His ticketing machine beeped. A green light flashed. He looked at it, confused, then just shrugged and waved me on. The black Errata card. It wasn't just a key. It was a wireless wallet, interfacing with systems I couldn't even see. I walked to the back of the bus. There were only a half-dozen passengers. An exhausted mother with a sleeping child. An old man reading a paper. A student with headphones. I took the designated seat. Rear, right side, window. I was exposed. The bus hissed and pulled out of the terminal. We merged into the late afternoon traffic. I watched the street, my heart hammering. I was following the script. I was in their hands. We drove for 5 minutes. Every car that pulled up alongside us made my skin crawl. Then I saw it. 3 cars back, at a red light. The gray sedan. The one driven by the man in the windbreaker. They had found me. Or they had anticipated my move. They were following the bus. My hand went to the phone in my pocket. It was cold. The sedan was gaining. It moved into the lane next to us. I could see the man in the windbreaker. He was on the phone, his expression grim. The man in the gray hoodie was in the passenger seat. He looked up, his eyes scanned the bus, and then, they locked with mine. He saw me. He grinned, a horrible, predatory expression. He pointed, tapping his driver on the shoulder. The sedan sped up, cutting in front of the bus, trying to force it to the curb. The bus driver laid on the horn. My phone buzzed, a long, sustained vibration. System, hostile action detected. Executing countermeasure. Brace. Brace. I whispered. The sedan was now directly in front of us, braking hard. The bus driver was yelling. It all happened in a single, fluid, impossible second. From a side street to our right, a black, heavily modified SUV, the kind you see in motorcades, with tinted windows and a reinforced grille, didn't stop. It didn't slow down. It accelerated through the red light at a horrifying speed. It T-boned the gray sedan. The sound was a catastrophic explosion of metal and glass. The impact was so violent it lifted the sedan off the ground, spinning it 180 degrees and slamming it into a concrete light pole. It wasn't an accident. It was a tactical strike. A perfect, calculated, brutal intercept. Our bus driver slammed on the brakes, and I was thrown forward, my head hitting the seat in front of me. The mother screamed. The old man yelled. The bus stopped. I looked out the window. The sedan was a mangled wreck. The black SUV, its front end crumpled, was already reversing. Two men, dressed in the same black tactical gear I'd seen by the train tracks in Boston, got out. They moved to the wreck, not to help, but to confirm. The bus driver was on his phone, yelling, "There's been a crash. A terrible crash." My phone buzzed. System, threat neutralized. Exit the bus. Proceed on foot. New waypoint forthcoming. The support was real. And it was absolutely terrifying. They hadn't just saved me. They had, in all likelihood, just executed two men in broad daylight. I stood up, my legs shaking. I pushed past the other passengers. "Hey, you can't leave. You're a witness," the driver yelled. I didn't listen. I slammed the emergency open bar on the rear door and jumped out onto the sidewalk. I didn't look back at the crash. I just blended into the afternoon pedestrians and walked. I was no longer Michael Sullivan. I was no longer Jacob Harlow. I was Errata, and I was an active asset. I walked for 10 blocks, putting as much distance between myself and the neutralized threat as possible. My mind was a mess. The sound of the crash, that sickening final crunch of metal, replayed in my head. This wasn't a game. This wasn't an interview. This was a war between two invisible, high-tech factions, and I was a piece of sentient software they were fighting over. The Errata system, my new employers, had just demonstrated their version of an access-denied error. It was brutal, efficient, and utterly inhuman. The men in the black SUV were my support. They were my system administrators. And they were just as terrifying as the men who had been hunting me. I was in the Fox Point neighborhood, an old, quiet part of Providence near the water. The streets were lined with historic homes and small, manicured parks. It was the last place you'd expect a data war to be raging. My burner phone buzzed. I pulled it out. System, waypoint updated. 417 B. Wickenden Street. Rear entrance. Code 08-14-89. My fake birthday. Jacob Harlow's birthday. They were reinforcing the new identity, burning it into my muscle memory. I found the address. It wasn't a house. It was a small independent bookstore, the Reading Nook, tucked between a coffee shop and an antique store. The front was quaint, with a closed sign hanging in the window. I walked around to the alley. The rear entrance was a heavy, steel gray door. It had a digital keypad, not a key. This was it. A safe house. I looked around. The alley was empty. I punched in the code 0-8-1-4-8-9. The lock beeped green. A heavy thunk echoed from inside, and the door clicked open. I stepped in and immediately locked it behind me. I wasn't in the bookstore. I was in a small, concrete vestibule. There was another door in front of me, this one like something from a bank vault. It had no handle, just a small, square, black glass scanner. The phone buzzed. System, present, Errata, card to scanner. I pulled off my left shoe. My hands were still shaking from the adrenaline. I retrieved the matte black card from under the insole and held it up to the scanner. The black glass lit up. A thin, blue line of light passed over the chip. A second later, with a hiss of compressed air, the vault door slid open. I stepped inside, and the door slid shut behind me, sealing me in. The room was perfect. It wasn't a bunker. It was a high-end, minimalist studio apartment. Polished concrete floors, a small, efficient kitchen with stainless steel appliances, a bed in the corner with clean, white sheets, and a bathroom. But the centerpiece of the room was the workstation. Against the far wall was a desk with a 3-monitor setup, a top-of-the-line ergonomic chair, and a tower PC that was humming quietly. It was the most beautiful and most terrifying thing I had ever seen. It was my new office. On the desk, laid out with military precision, were several items. A stack of clean, new clothes in my size. Black pants, a gray shirt, a dark blue hoodie, socks, and a new pair of running shoes. A toiletry bag. A small, vacuum-sealed pouch of medical supplies, bandages, antiseptic wipes, painkillers, and a single, 8x10 file folder. I ignored the clothes, the food, the lure of a hot shower. I walked to the desk and opened the folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a satellite image of a warehouse complex in the Port of Providence. One of the buildings was circled in red. Underneath the image, a single line of text, just like on the phone. Objective. The hostile intercept, faction, Silas, is storing data at this node. Their backup is offline. Infiltrate. Access their local server. Upload the Errata log, asset, USB. Wipe their drive. This was it. My first job. They didn't just want the Errata log back. They wanted me to use it. They wanted me to personally upload it to their enemy's server. Why? To poison it. To act as a Trojan horse. And faction, Silas. My enemy finally had a name. The men in the hoodies, the man in the windbreaker, they worked for Silas. The Errata system and Silas were at war. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. System. The Silas faction believes you are Michael Sullivan, a rogue analyst who stole our data. They do not know you are Errata, our asset. They were attempting to acquire you. System. Your former identity is a liability. It is time to finalize your onboarding. System. Connect the passport, asset, blank, to the workstation via the peripheral slot. I looked at the desk. Next to the keyboard was a small, flat scanner, just the size of a passport. I retrieved the blank passport from my blazer. I opened it to the photo page and placed it on the scanner. The phone buzzed. System. Place thumb on scanner. Look at the webcam. A small high-definition webcam on top of the center monitor lit up with a blue light. A red biometric scanner glowed on the desk. I placed my right thumb on the scanner. I looked into the camera. The workstation word. On the center monitor, I saw data fields populating in real time. Name: Harlow, Jacob R. DOB 08-14-1989. Sex: M. Place of birth: Boston, Ma. Issue date: today's date. SSN, a new number I'd never seen. My face, the one I just scanned, appeared on the screen. My thumbprint data was encoded. Then, I watched in stunned silence as a small, high-resolution thermal printer built into the desk printed this information, flawlessly, onto the blank passport. It wasn't a sticker. It was, in the page. It was embedding the data. After a moment, the phone buzzed. System. Onboarding complete. Michael Sullivan is now archived. You are Jacob R. Harlow. All biometric and financial systems are now synced to Errata card. System. Your objective is live. Prepare for deployment. A transport will be available at 2300 hours. I picked up the passport. It was real. It was me. It was Jacob Harlow. I was no longer a ghost. I was a weapon. I looked at the clothes, the shower, the workstation. I had a few hours. I stripped off the filthy, inside-out remnants of Michael Sullivan's life. I stepped into the hot shower, and as the water and grime ran down the drain, I let him go. Michael Sullivan was the man who was erased. Jacob Harlow was the man who was going to do the erasing. The hot water was a scalding, grounding shock. I stood under the stream, watching the grime of the last 2 days, the alley dirt, the culvert filth, the sweat of pure terror, circle the drain. I wasn't just washing my body. I was performing a ritual. I was erasing the last physical traces of Michael Sullivan. He was a victim. He was weak. He was a file that had been corrupted and was now being purged. I stepped out of the steam-filled bathroom. Jacob Harlow looked back at me from the mirror. His eyes were the same, but the panic was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. A purpose. I dressed in the new clothes. They weren't just clothes, they were a uniform. Black cargo pants, a moisture-wicking synthetic shirt, and the dark hoodie. The running shoes were new, high traction, and silent. I felt lighter, faster, less like a civilian and more like a tool. I found a small, stocked kitchen. Protein bars, water bottles, vacuum-sealed meals. I ate a bar, not because I was hungry, but for fuel. I was an asset, and an asset required maintenance. With hours to go before 2300 hours, I sat down at the workstation. It was exactly as I'd expected. The machine booted without a logo, opening directly into a black, text-based operating system. No icons, no mouse, just a green, blinking cursor. The Errata OS. My fingers, which had once analyzed financial risk, now felt perfectly at home. I typed a simple command, ls, mission. A directory appeared. Objective, Silas, node, PVD-01. I opened it. The 3 monitors lit up with a flood of data. The center screen showed a live, multi-angle feed from security cameras inside and outside the target warehouse. The Errata system was already inside their network. I was being sent in because they needed a physical hand. The left screen showed a detailed architectural blueprint. It wasn't just a floor plan. It was a 3D rendered schematic, showing entry points, structural weaknesses, and most importantly, the flow of data cables. I saw the main server room, marked in red. It was in a reinforced cage in the center of the warehouse floor. The right screen showed the network architecture, firewall protocols, access permissions. I saw their internal security. It was good, very good. But the Errata system had already punched a hole in it, a backdoor that was being held open for me, flagged as a routine diagnostic by the Silas system. This was the key. I wasn't going in blind. I was a scalpel, and the Errata system was the surgeon's hand, guiding me to the precise point of incision. I studied the guard patrols. 2 men, 12-minute loops. They met at the front, diverged. One took the east perimeter, one took the west. They were blind to the north side loading dock for exactly 90 seconds every loop. That was my entry window. My phone buzzed. System. Authorization granted. Analyze. Payload. The workstation's USB port lit up. This was it. The drive. The Errata log I had copied from Fin & Secure. The file that had ended my life. I plugged it in. The system immediately sandboxed it, scanning it for threats for me, which I found grimly ironic. The contents loaded. It wasn't a log. Michael Sullivan, the systems analyst, had thought it was a log. He was a fool. It was a worm. A weaponized, autonomous, self-replicating piece of code so sophisticated it made my old work look like a child's toy. I read the core script. My blood ran cold, but I also felt a dark, professional admiration. It didn't just steal data. It rewrote it. It was a virus that targeted and corrupted an enemy's core command structure. The Errata log was designed to find other Errata agents, other ghost files like me that Silas had captured, and either liberate them or purge them. And the final line of code, the one that would execute after it had spread. Command, wipe.all.proto-Silas. It was a kill switch for their entire faction. My mission wasn't just to drop a file. It was to unleash a digital plague. The Silas faction had been trying to acquire me, the analyst who had found this code. My Errata employers weren't just saving me. They were unleashing me. They were pointing their gun back at the enemy. The phone buzzed. System, your transport is staged. 2250, move to egress point, alley. It was time. I stood up. I put the USB drive, the payload, into a secure pocket. I put on the new running shoes. I pulled the hoodie up, shadowing my face. I was no longer Michael Sullivan, the man who analyzed risk. I was no longer Jacob Harlow, the ghost in the machine. I was Errata, the mistake, the correction, the weapon. I walked to the vault door. It hissed open, recognizing the Errata card, which I had placed back in my shoe. I stepped out into the dark alley behind the bookstore. The air was cold and sharp. A black, unmarked motorcycle was waiting, keys in the ignition. No car, no support team. I was going in alone. I swung my leg over the bike. It felt natural, even though Michael Sullivan hadn't ridden in 10 years. Maybe Jacob Harlow had. I turned the key. The engine was almost silent, a low, electric hum. My phone, mounted on the handlebars, lit up. It wasn't a map. It was just a single, glowing green arrow. System, proceed. I pulled out of the alley and merged into the night. The motorcycle was a ghost. It made no sound but the faint hiss of rubber on asphalt. The glowing green arrow on my phone was my only guide, anticipating turns, directing me through a labyrinth of dark, industrial streets. This was the port of Providence, a dead zone after midnight. The air was heavy with the smell of diesel, rust, and the cold, briny tang of the ocean. I felt calm. The fear that had defined Michael Sullivan was gone. In its place was a cold, sharp focus. I wasn't a person. I was an agent executing a command. The phone's arrow blinked, directing me into a shadow between two massive, corrugated steel warehouses. System. Transport staged. Proceed on foot. Maintain stealth. Silas, patrols are active. I dismounted, and the bike's lights died instantly. The key wasn't needed, it was synced to the phone in my pocket. I was in a narrow service alley. Ahead of me, through a gap in a chain-link fence, was the target, Warehouse 7, the Silas node. It was a huge, windowless block of concrete and steel. Faint light spilled from under a single metal door at the far end. I moved to the fence, my new running shoes making no sound on the cracked pavement. I was in total darkness, but the workstation back at the safe house had burned the layout into my mind. I checked my watch. 0:14. The guard patrol loop was 12 minutes. I waited. At 0:15, just as the data predicted, two men in dark uniforms rounded the far corner. They met, exchanged a few words, and then separated. One walked the east perimeter, one walked the west. My 90-second window had begun. I moved. I didn't run. I flowed. I went through the gap in the fence and sprinted, low and fast, across 30 yards of open pavement to the north side loading dock. This was their blind spot. I reached the dock. It was raised 4 feet off the ground. I grabbed the edge and hauled myself up in one fluid motion. My body, which had been a soft analyst's body 2 days ago, obeyed. The fear and adrenaline had burned away the weakness. The loading bay door was sealed. Beside it was a smaller metal entry door. It had a heavy-duty digital keypad and maglock. I looked at the keypad. I didn't need to guess the code. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. System. Slaving lock. Authenticating. A rapid string of characters scrolled across my screen. The phone was communicating with the lock, brute-forcing a handshake in milliseconds. The keypad's light, which had been red, flashed green. A heavy click echoed in the silence. I opened the door, slipped inside, and eased it shut. The click of the lock re-engaging was deafeningly loud. I was in. The warehouse was cavernous, a cathedral of shadows. It was filled with massive shipping containers, stacked 3 high, creating a maze of steel canyons. The only light came from faint, high-up emergency floods, casting long, distorted shadows. It smelled of ozone, machine oil, and dust. I could see my objective. In the center of the vast floor, lit by the ghostly blue and green blinking of its own hardware, was the server cage. It was exactly as the blueprints had shown, a 30 by 30 foot room, walled with heavy-gauge chain link, a digital fortress inside a physical one. I took the payload, the silver USB drive, from my pocket. I held it in my fist. I moved. I stuck to the shadows, my path dictated by the mental map from the Errata system. I was a rat in their maze, but I was a rat with the blueprints. Left at the blue, Haypagloid container. Right at the stack of chemical drums. I moved with a speed and confidence that wasn't mine. It was the system's. I was just the delivery mechanism. I reached the cage. The hum of the server fans was a low, steady drone. I could feel the heat rolling off the racks. The door to the cage was a single, sliding metal gate. It was secured with a biometric hand scanner. I stopped. This was not in the briefing. The blueprints showed a keypad. The system had prepared me for a keypad. A hand scanner was a different problem. It was linked to a specific, living person. I couldn't spoof it. I couldn't bypass it. This was a variance. The data was wrong. This was a test. What do you do when the system's plan fails? I pulled out my phone. System. Requesting override. Scanner is unexpected. I waited. The green cursor just blinked. No reply. Was the system gone? Was I offline? Was I abandoned? No. This was the real test. The P.O. box, the bar, the chase. That was the interview. This was the first day on the job. The Errata system didn't just want a drone. It wanted an analyst. It wanted a problem solver. I looked at the scanner. I couldn't go through it. So, I had to go around it. I looked up. The chain link cage had a roof, just like the walls. It was designed to keep people out from every angle. But the server racks, they had to be powered. They had to be connected. I followed the thick, black bundles of data cables that snaked out of the top of the cage and into a raised conduit running along the ceiling. This conduit was my in. I found a stack of wooden pallets and began to climb, quiet as a spider. I got on top of a shipping container. I was level with the conduit. It was a foot-wide metal tray, attached to the warehouse rafters. I could do this. I was about to pull myself up when my phone vibrated, not a buzz, but a single, hard pulse. I looked at the screen. A new line. System. Alert. Hostile asset detected. Unexpected patrol. Static. 15 meters. SW. My blood turned to ice. I froze. I didn't even breathe. From the southwest aisle of the container maze, I heard it. A cough. The scuff of a boot. One of the guards was off patrol, and he was heading this way. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I was a statue of shadow on top of a steel box. My blood was a frozen river. 15 meters. Southwest. That was just one aisle over. I heard the scrape of a boot on concrete. A heavy sigh. Then, the unmistakable click and flare of a cigarette lighter. The guard wasn't patrolling. He was stationary. He was hiding. He was off his loop, taking an unsanctioned smoke break. This was a random, human variable that the system's prediction model had missed. And it was going to get me killed. He was directly in the path between me and the server cage. I was pinned. My 90-second window was gone. The other guard would be coming back around any minute. I was trapped between two moving and one stationary hostiles. My phone was silent. The system had given me the alert. It had done its part. Now it was up to me, the errata, the mistake, to solve the problem. I was an analyst. I analyzed systems. This warehouse was a system. The guards were a component. The stationary guard was a bug in the code. I couldn't delete him. I couldn't bypass him. I had to move him. I had to create a new interrupt request that would take priority over his smoke break. I stayed perfectly still on top of the container and slowly pulled out my phone. The green cursor blinked at me, mocking. I was connected to the Errata OS, and the Errata OS was connected to the warehouse. I had seen the workstation. I had access to the building's internal controls. I typed a command. My fingers were stiff, but steady. ls-env.control. A directory list appeared. Lighting. HVAC. Access. Fire_suppression. This was my toolkit. Fire_suppression was too loud. It would alert everyone. HVAC was too subtle. Lighting. That was it. I typed CD lighting. Then LS zone. A list of nodes appeared. doc_in. doc_us. IL_W_1-12. IL_E_1-12. Cage_perimeter. The guard was in the west aisle. The other guard was on the east perimeter. I needed to pull the west guard away from me without pulling the east guard toward me. I would create a problem in the opposite corner of the warehouse. I typed exec.flicker node documents T10s. I hit enter. The phone read, command executed. Far across the massive, dark warehouse, in the south dock quadrant, a single, high-intensity floodlight sputtered. It flashed once, twice, and then went dark. The silence that followed was absolute. I heard the guard below me curse under his breath. I heard him drop his cigarette, hissing, on the concrete. Damn it, he mumbled. Freaking ballasts. His radio crackled. Unit 2, what's your 20? It was the other guard. Unit 1, my guard grumbled into his radio. I'm on the west perimeter. Hey, you see that south dock flood go out? Negative 1. I'm on the east side. Everything's fine here. Great. I'll go check the breaker. Stupid, cheap wiring. I heard his footsteps, heavy and annoyed, moving away from me. He was heading south, to the breaker box, just as I'd planned. The bug was fixed. I didn't wait. The second his footsteps faded, I was moving. I pulled myself up onto the data conduit, a cold, dusty metal tray a foot wide. I was 20 feet off the ground. I began to crawl, my knees and hands balancing on the narrow track. The server cage was below me, a glowing, humming heart. The biometric scanner on its door was irrelevant now. I was above it. I was performing open heart surgery. I reached the center of the cage. The roof was just more chain link. But the cables, the thick, bundled arteries of the system, passed through a 4x4-foot opening. I looked down. Below me were the racks. Row after row of black servers, their LEDs blinking in a hypnotic, secret rhythm. This was the Silas faction's brain in this region. I found the main trunk. A bundle of fiber optic and Cat6 cables thick as my arm, leading to the primary router. I unzipped my hoodie pocket and pulled out the payload. The small, silver USB drive. My life and the death of the system was on it. I balanced precariously, one-handed, and reached down through the gap. I had to find a high-privilege port, a USB port on a core server. There, on the back of the main racks router, an access port labeled Diagnostic. I pushed the drive in. It slid home with a small, satisfying click. The LED on the drive flashed once. Red. My phone, clutched in my other hand, went insane. The screen flooded with green text, scrolling faster than I could read. Payload delivered. Authenticating. Handshake established. Silas firewall detected. Bypassing. Kernel access granted. Executing Errata worm. V.2.14. I was in. The virus was planted. It was done. Uploading payload. 10%, 30%, 50%. I felt a surge of, not joy, but completion. I had done it. I had completed the objective. 70%, 90%. Upload complete. Errata worm is now autonomous. Objective, wipe drive. Initiating. And then, everything went wrong. A new, unexpected line of code appeared on my phone, in a color I hadn't seen yet. Bright, angry red. System. Alert. Hostile countermeasure detected. Silas sysadmin is active. System. Silas is attempting to quarantine the port. Down below me, in the cage, the lights didn't just flicker. They all snapped off, then snapped back on, shining a deep, pulsing red. A new sound. Not the building's fire alarm, but a digital, high-frequency shriek from the servers themselves. The Silas system knew. It knew it had been breached. It knew where it had been breached. And I was still hanging 20 feet in the air, directly above it. My phone flashed again. System. Errata worm is contained. Mission failed. Egress. Mission failed. Egress. The words on my phone were a death sentence. The high-pitched digital shriek from the servers was a physical assault, drilling into my skull. The cage below me was a vortex of pulsing, hellish red light. I was exposed. 20 feet in the air, a perfect target. Over there, a voice yelled from the warehouse floor. By the cage. What is that? The guards. The smoker and his partner. The human element. They had heard the server alarm. I see him, another voice shouted. On the conduit. Get him down. My phone buzzed again, a frantic, angry vibration. System. Hostiles converging. Violate stealth. Evade. Egress now. I had to move. I scrambled along the data conduit, heading back toward the shipping container I'd climbed. My heart was a hammer, every beat echoing the egress command. I was halfway there when I stopped. The payload. The USB drive. It was still plugged into the server rack, 20 feet below me, inside the locked cage. My mission had failed because the worm was contained. But if I left the drive, the Silas faction would get it. They would analyze the code. They would reverse engineer the Errata system's most powerful weapon. They would see the very code that had gotten Michael Sullivan erased. As an analyst, I knew this was a catastrophic failure. Leaving that drive was worse than failing the mission. It was arming the enemy. The Errata system, my handler, had made a calculation. The asset, me, was more valuable than the payload. I made a different calculation. I turned around. He's going back, one of the guards yelled. I crawled fast, back along the conduit until I was directly over the server cage. The guards were at the cage door, fumbling with keys, their flashlights cutting uselessly through the dark. System. Asset non-compliant. Cease deviation. Egress. This is a final order. I ignored it. This was the part of the test they hadn't planned for. The human variable. The mistake. The Errata. I looked down through the 4x4-foot cable opening. It was a 20-foot drop onto the hard metal top of a server rack. I took a breath, and I let go. I fell, my body twisting. I hit the server rack with a sound like a car crash, a deafening whump of metal on metal. The impact shot through my legs and spine. I cried out, pain exploding behind my eyes. I was inside the cage. The guards were momentarily stunned. He's in the cage. How? Who cares? He's trapped. I ignored the pain. I rolled off the top of the rack, my ankle screaming in protest as I hit the floor. I was in the aisle between two humming, shrieking server banks. I saw the diagnostic port. I saw my silver USB drive. I grabbed it. I yanked it free. The moment I did, the digital shriek from the servers stopped. The red lights went dead. The cage plunged into near darkness, lit only by the normal, blinking green and blue LEDs of the racks. I had pulled the plug. The Silas admin had lost his remote access to that port. I had the payload. I turned. The two guards were at the cage door, their sidearms drawn, pointed directly at my chest. Freeze. Drop it. Hands in the air. Now. I was trapped. A rat in a cage. My back was to a server rack. My escape route was a locked door with two guns pointed through it. My phone buzzed. This time, the text was slow, cold, and final. System. Asset has violated directives. Asset is compromised. Errata support is now offline. You are on your own. They had cut me off. I had defied the system, and the system had just logged me out. I was alone. No Errata system to unlock the door. No support to neutralize the threat. I was just Jacob Harlow, a man with a bad ankle, trapped in a cage with two men who were about to shoot him. I said, "Drop it," the first guard yelled, his voice shaking. I can't, I panted, the drive clutched in my fist. Last chance. Wait, a new voice said. A third man walked into the light. He wasn't in a guard uniform. He was wearing jeans, a black jacket, and glasses. He was holding a high-end tablet. He looked like me. He looked like an analyst. He looked at me, not with a guard's panic, but with a cold, terrifying, professional curiosity. He was the on-site sysadmin, the one who had detected me. Don't shoot him, the admin said, his eyes locked on mine. He's the anomaly from Fin & Secure. He walked right up to the cage door. He studied me. You're fast, he said, his voice calm. My system only caught your worm's signature for 3.4 seconds before you ripped the drive. But the handshake, it was Errata protocol. He knew the name. So, he continued, a thin, cruel smile playing on his lips. The Errata system finally sent their ghost to do their dirty work. They erased you, didn't they? Michael Sullivan. He knew my name. My real name. They erased Michael Sullivan, and they built Jacob Harlow to take his place. Or whatever they're calling you. Silas, we were trying to save you, Mike. We were trying to intercept you before they could do this. He gestured to me. The hoodie. The wild, hunted look. That's a lie, I growled, my voice raw. Is it? The Silas admin asked. Who sent you in here, alone, on a suicide mission? Who put a kill switch in your hand? And who just abandoned you the second you went off script? My phone, in my pocket, was a dead, useless weight. He was right. Give me the drive, Mike, the admin said, his voice now soft, almost kind. Join us. Silas doesn't delete its people. We protect them. The two guards still had their guns on me. What's it gonna be? The admin asked. A dead asset for a system that doesn't care? Or a new life with us? The admin's offer hung in the air, thick and toxic as the smell of ozone from the servers. Join us. The two guards, their guns unwavering, were the counter-argument. They weren't a rescue party. They were an execution squad, momentarily paused. My mind, the analyst's mind, was racing. I had two data streams, both corrupt. Stream 1, the Errata system. Ruthless, inhuman, efficient. It gave me power, tools, and a purpose. It also saw me as utterly disposable. Stream 2, the Silas faction. They used a human face. They spoke of saving me, but their field agents were brutes, and their interception was a violent abduction attempt. They were two rival operating systems, fighting for control, and I was the colonel. Save me, I said, my voice a low, painful rasp. My ankle was a bonfire of agony. Is that what your men in the gray hoodies were doing? The hostile intercept. They didn't look like a rescue team. The admin didn't flinch. His smile was still there. You were a rogue variable, Michael. We didn't know what you were. You were a man who had stolen Errata's most valuable weapon. Of course our initial approach was firm. We had to acquire the asset. But now, he gestured to my phone, the dead weight in my pocket. Now we see the truth. They activated you, and then they threw you away, just like they do to all their errors. He was good. He was seeding doubt. He was running a psychological script. Give us the drive, and you walk out of here, he said. We'll even give you your name back. Michael Sullivan. A real life. Not this Errata ghost. He was offering to restore the deleted file. It was the most tempting lie I had ever heard. But an analyst doesn't trust the sales pitch. He checks the source code. My eyes darted from the admin's face to the guard's guns, to the locked cage door, and then to the server rack I was leaning against. The Errata system had abandoned me, but it had trained me. It had taught me that every system has a vulnerability, a fail-safe. I looked at the lock on the cage door. It was a heavy, electronic maglock. No keyhole. It was controlled by him, by the admin's tablet, or by the hand scanner he had used to let himself in. No, the guards were outside. He was outside. I was inside. They hadn't opened the door. They were talking to me through the chain link, which meant I was still locked in. This was bad. My escape plan, a sudden move, was useless. I was physically contained. What's it going to be, Mike? The admin pressed. The drive. Or them. He nodded to the guards. I had to change the parameters. I was an analyst, trapped inside the machine. So, I would break the machine. You're right, I said, my voice suddenly clear. I held up my left hand, empty. You're right. They left me. The admin smiled. He had one. Smart move. Now, the drive. Pass it through the fence. But you're wrong about one thing, I said. What's that? You think they abandoned me, I said, as I leaned all my weight on my good leg. They just gave me a new directive. What are you talking about? He asked, his smile faltering. Directive, Errata, I whispered. Correct the error, and you are the error. My other hand, the one holding the precious USB drive, was hidden. But my focus was on my right shoe. Slowly, as if I was just shifting my weight, I bent my knee. I slipped my fingers into my shoe, under my foot. The hard, matte black Errata card. The key. The credit card. The high-powered chip. I don't know what you're... The admin started. This, I said, and I moved. In one violent, desperate motion, I pulled the card from my shoe and shoved it, hard, into the power supply unit of the server rack I was leaning on. It was not a USB port. It was a 240-volt socket. The Errata card was a sophisticated piece of technology. It was also, at its core, a conduit. The moment the chip made contact, it completed a circuit it was never meant to. The result was not a simple spark. It was a catastrophic, instantaneous electrical discharge. A sound like a lightning strike, a deafening crack boom, exploded in the cage. A brilliant, blinding white arc of electricity shot from the power supply, vaporizing the card in my hand and throwing me backward. The world went white. The smell of ozone and burnt plastic filled my lungs. Every light in the warehouse went out. The main power grid for the entire building was shorted. Darkness. Absolute. Total. The maglock on the cage door, a device that required constant power to stay locked, failed. Its fail-safe protocol was to unlock in a power failure. I heard the heavy thunk of the bolt releasing. The guards were yelling, blinded by the flash. What happened? My eyes. I can't see. The admin was screaming. This was my window. I ignored the searing pain in my hand, the agony in my ankle. I scrambled on all fours to the cage door. I felt the metal bar. I pushed. It slid open. I was out. I was in the main warehouse, in the pitch-black maze of shipping containers. He's out, the admin shrieked, his voice hysterical. The door is open. Shoot. Shoot him. Asterisk BLAM. 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 Asterisk. The muzzle flashes of their guns lit up the darkness, strobing, illuminating the wrong aisles. They were firing blind, their night vision destroyed by the arc flash. I didn't run. I limped. I hobbled, fast and low, my bad ankle screaming with every step. I put the payload, the USB drive, between my teeth. I disappeared into the steel canyons, just another ghost in the machine I had broken. The darkness was a physical, suffocating blanket, filled with the smell of ozone and vaporized plastic. My hand was a claw of fried, useless meat. The Errata card had been my sacrifice, and the pain was the system's receipt. My ankle screamed. The 20-foot drop onto the server rack hadn't just sprained it. Something was broken. I put the USB drive, the payload, between my teeth, tasting the metallic tang of the silver casing. "You are on your own." The Errata system's final words were an echo in my head. I was an asset, and I had just set myself on fire. To them, I was now a corrupted file, a liability. The Silas admin was shouting, a voice of pure, panicked rage. "Get the emergency floods. Get them on. Now." Blam! A blind, stupid shot. The bullet ricocheted off a steel container, the wine disappearing into the vastness of the warehouse. I couldn't run. I couldn't even walk. I crawled, dragging my useless left leg behind me. Every movement, every scrape of my knee on the concrete, was a fresh wave of agony. I was a wounded animal, and the pack was right behind me. I pulled myself into the narrow gap between two massive Maersk containers. The steel canyons. This was my only cover. I pressed my back against the cold, corrugated wall, my breath coming in ragged, silent gasps. "The main breaker is fried," another voice yelled. "The whole grid is down." "Then get your flashlights, you idiots," the admin screamed. "He's wounded. He's on foot. He can't have gone far. Lock down the perimeter." I heard them fumbling. Then, the darkness was shattered. Beams. 3 powerful flashlight beams, cutting through the black, sweeping the aisles. They were scalpels, dissecting the shadows, searching for the infection. Searching for me. I was pinned. I was Michael Sullivan, the analyst. I was Jacob Harlow, the ghost. But right now, I was neither. I was just a target. The beams were moving. A systematic sweep. They were smart. They weren't just running around. They were starting from the cage and moving outward, aisle by aisle. They would find me in 2 minutes. I had to move. I looked down the dark, narrow aisle I was in. It was a straight shot, 50 yards to the other side. If I moved, they would see me. I was trapped. Analyze. The thought came from the Michael Sullivan part of my brain. The part that didn't panic. The part that saw systems. The warehouse was a system. The containers were the nodes. The guards were the hostile processes. I looked at the container I was hiding behind. It was a refrigerated unit, but its power was dead. Its door, however, had a heavy latch bar. I had no gun. I had no Errata support. I had one good hand, one good leg, and my mind. And I had gravity. I heard the guards. They were in the next aisle over. "Nothing here. Check aisle 7. That was my aisle. I reached up with my good hand, my right hand. I grabbed the cold steel latch bar on the container door. It was heavy. I pulled. It was stiff, rusted, but it moved. A loud, metallic scrape echoed in the warehouse. "There!" a voice yelled. "Aisle 7. I heard him." The beams all converged on the end of my aisle. I was illuminated, caught like a rat in a trap. "Got you!" the guard shouted, raising his pistol. "Wait!" the admin yelled. "I want him alive. The drive. We need." I didn't wait for the debate. I put all my weight into it. I hauled the container door open. It wasn't full of cargo. It was full of nothing. It was an empty, refrigerated container. My heart sank. My plan had failed. "It's over, Mike," the admin said, walking into the beam of his guard's light, his tablet now useless in his hand. "Give it up. There's nowhere to go." I stared at him, cornered, my back against the open container door. "The drive," he said, holding out his hand. I took the USB drive from my mouth. My good hand was trembling. My burned hand was a useless, throbbing weight. My ankle was on fire. I was an analyst. And I had one last move. "You know," I said, my voice shaking. "The Errata system, they gave me a lot of tools." "They're gone," the admin said. "It's just you. You're a fail state, Mike." "They gave me this hoodie," I said, touching the new synthetic fabric. The admin frowned. "What?" "It's really high quality. Low friction." And with that, I fell backward. I didn't just step back. I threw myself, back first, into the empty, pitch-black, refrigerated container. My hoodie, on the smooth metal floor, was like ice on ice. I slid fast into the darkness. "What is he doing?" the guard yelled. "The back." "Is there a back exit?" the admin shouted. I was in a 40-foot metal box. I scrambled, crawling in the dark, to the far end. There was no exit. I was trapped. I had just locked myself in a smaller cage. "He's in the container," the guard said. "He's trapped." I heard them run up. I saw their flashlight beams flood the container's opening. "It's a dead end, Mike," the admin laughed. A stupid, desperate wait. His voice changed. "Wait. Why? Why would he?" I heard a new sound. A low, heavy rumble. I wasn't in an empty container. I was in a tilted container. The one I was in was on the top of a stack, and it was balanced on a container that had been damaged. My weight, my sudden movement, had shifted the center of gravity. The rumble became a groan of tortured steel. "Get back!" the admin screamed. "Get back!" The world tilted. The container I was in wasn't just on the stack. It was now falling off the stack. I was thrown against the wall as the entire 40-foot steel box pitched forward. It slid off its perch and nosedived toward the concrete floor, 20 feet below. It hit with the sound of a bomb. A catastrophic, deafening crunch of metal. I was thrown, weightless, against the front doors. The impact. The pain. The world went black. Consciousness returned, not as a light, but as a flood of pure, agonizing pain. My head felt like it had been split in two. The world was a spinning, lightless void, and every part of my body was a different kind of fire. My ankle was a white-hot spike. My left hand was a numb, throbbing burn. And now, my back and ribs felt shattered from the impact. I was in a box. A dark, metal box. The smell of rust and my own blood filled my nostrils. The container. I was still inside. My first thought, a clear, sharp spike of panic that cut through the pain, the payload. I had put the USB drive in my mouth. When the container fell, I spat it out. It was gone. "No," I whispered, my voice a dry, broken sound. I tried to move. My good hand, my right hand, fumbled in the dark. I was lying on the cold, buckled metal floor of the container. My fingers brushed against the grit and dust. Nothing. I had failed. I had survived a 20-foot drop inside a steel coffin, only to fail. Then I heard it. Groaning. Shouting. Outside. The Silas crew. "Holy. Is he dead? The whole stack, it's coming down. Back up. Back up." Another, secondary crash. More containers, destabilized by the first, were collapsing. The warehouse was eating itself. This was my chance. They were distracted. Panicked. I needed light. My phone. My lifeline. The Errata system had cut me off, but the hardware, was it broken? I fumbled at my pocket with my good hand. The phone was there. Its case was cracked, but it felt intact. I pressed the power button. A miracle. The dim, green, single cursor screen flickered to life. System, offline. No connection to host. It was enough. It was a light. A tiny, dim, green-black light, but it was light. I aimed the screen at the floor around me. The container was a wreck, the metal walls warped and buckled. And there it was. Not 3 inches from my face. The small, silver rectangle. The payload. I snatched it, my hand shaking violently. I didn't put it in my mouth. I didn't put it in my pocket. I closed my fist around it. My good, right fist. It was the only thing in the world that mattered. Now, escape. I crawled, using the phone's light. The main doors of the container were hopelessly jammed, crumpled like a piece of paper. The impact had sealed them shut. I was in a tomb. I crawled the other way, toward the back of the 40-foot box. Toward the refrigeration unit. The impact, it must have. Yes. The floor had buckled, and where the sidewall met the back, the metal had torn. A jagged, 3-foot-long rip. It was a mouth with steel teeth, leading back out into the warehouse. I heard the Silas admin's voice, cutting through the chaos. "Forget the stack. Find the body. He has to have the drive. Find it." They were coming. I crawled. I dragged my broken ankle, my useless leg. Every movement was a fresh hell. I reached the tear in the metal. It was a tight squeeze. I shoved the phone into my hoodie pocket. I put the USB drive back in my mouth, clamped between my teeth. I needed my one good hand to pull myself through. I pushed my head and shoulders into the gap. The jagged steel tore at my hoodie, at my skin. I didn't care. I pulled. My body snagged. I was stuck. "The container's here," a voice shouted. "Get a light on it." A powerful beam, a vehicle headlight, suddenly flooded the warehouse. One of them had gotten a forklift or a truck. The light was aimed right at the fallen container. I had seconds. I gave one last, desperate, pain-fueled heave. I twisted my body. I felt my shirt rip, felt the metal teeth rake across my back. And then I was free. I fell out of the container, a drop of about 3 feet, onto the concrete floor. I landed hard on my good shoulder, a fresh jolt of agony. There he is. The headlight swung, pinning me. I was exposed. A broken, crawling rat. The Silas admin stood silhouetted in the light, a look of pure, triumphant hatred on his face. He's alive. Get him. The 2 guards, their guns raised, began advancing. I was done. I had no fight left. I had nowhere to run. My phone, in my pocket, suddenly buzzed. Not a system buzz. A phone call buzz. A hard, rattling, incoming call vibration. That was impossible. It was a burner. It had no number. It was a closed system device. No connection to host. It buzzed again, insistent. The guards were 10 yards away. I pulled the phone out. The green cursor was gone. The screen just said, incoming call, unknown number. I had no choice. I hit accept with my thumb. I put the phone to my ear. Jacob, a woman's voice said. Calm, clear, crisp. You've made a terrible mess. I didn't recognize the voice. Who is this? This, she said, is your new handler. The Errata system is a protocol, Jacob. It's not a person. And when its assets go offline, a human supervisor has to step in. My name is Alice, and you're currently disappointing me. The guards were 5 yards away. I'm a little busy, Alice, I hissed, trying to push myself backward with one hand. Yes, I can see that, she said. I realized with a cold dread that she was watching me. Not through a warehouse camera, the power was out. She was watching from somewhere else. A drone. A satellite. You defied a direct order. You compromised the mission. You lost a multi-million-dollar piece of hardware, my black card. I got the payload. I spat, the drive still clenched in my teeth. Yes, you did, she said. Her voice changed, a note of approval. That, I admit, was an impressive variable. You prioritized the data over the asset, over yourself. This is a desirable trait. They're going to kill me. I yelled. No, they're not, she said, almost bored. The Silas admin is named Mark. He's an analyst, like you, but he's sloppy. He's let his emotions compromise his objective. You, on the other hand, are just compromised. Alice! Look up, Jacob. I looked up, past the blinding headlight. High in the rafters of the warehouse, in the pitch black, something moved. The Errata system might be offline, Alice's voice said in my ear, but its assets are not. Goodbye, Mark. A single, muffled thud. Not a gunshot. A dart. The Silas admin, Mark, who had been walking toward me with a triumphant grin, just stopped. He looked confused. He touched his neck. He looked at his fingers. He swayed, and he collapsed, face first, onto the concrete. The 2 guards skidded to a halt. Mark. Boss. What? Asterisk fut. Fut. Asterisk. The 2 guards stiffened, their guns dropping from their hands. They slumped to the ground, unconscious before they hit the floor. Silence. The truck's headlight was still on, illuminating the 3 sleeping bodies. I just lay there, panting, my mind completely broken. Support, Alice said, is no longer offline. Now, get up, I said. We're on a clock, and you still have a job to do. I lay on the cold, gritty concrete, my world reduced to the headlight beam, the 3 unconscious bodies, and the impossibly calm, female voice in my ear. Get up, I said. I can't, I gasped, the words tasting like blood and metal from the payload. My ankle's broken. My hand. Unacceptable, Alice replied, her voice sharp, devoid of pity. Pain is a data point. Acknowledge it, then bypass it. Your left ankle has a compound fracture. Your left hand has 3rd-degree electrical burns. You have multiple deep tissue contusions and a probable concussion. You are, however, still operational. A cold dread, deeper than the pain, settled over me. How do you know that? I am monitoring your vitals, Jacob. I have been since you opened the P.O. box. The Errata card you so carelessly destroyed was also your primary biometric monitor. The phone is your backup. I was tagged. A piece of hardware. You cut me off. The system went offline. You abandoned me. We did, she confirmed, with no trace of apology. It's called the blackout protocol. A test. We create a catastrophic fail state to see if an asset will default to self-preservation or mission preservation. You were given a direct order to egress. You disobeyed. You chose to retrieve the payload. You prioritized the data over your own survival. I was panting, my mind struggling to keep up. So, I failed the test. You failed the obedience test, Mr. Harlow, she said. A new, strange warmth entered her voice. You passed the loyalty test. The Errata system is designed to correct errors. Michael Sullivan would have run. Jacob Harlow would have obeyed. But you, the entity that is now Errata, you understood the value of the data. You passed. I was a successful experiment. That's what she was telling me. The mission, I grunted, trying to push myself up with my one good arm. The worm. It failed. The worm was a secondary objective, Alice said dismissively. A lovely bonus, had it worked. No, Jacob, the primary objective was always him. She meant Mark, the Silas admin, lying 10 feet away in the dirt. You were the bait, Alice explained. We knew this Silas node was active. We knew they were monitoring our frequencies, looking for the analyst who had found our code. We let them see you. We let you get caught. We needed to confirm, with our own eyes, that their leadership was actively trying to acquire our weapons. You were the cheese. I was a pawn. A piece of cheese. A wave of fury, so hot it almost eclipsed the pain, washed over me. And now, she continued, your job is to bring the cheese, and the rat you caught, back to us. The truck, Jacob. The one with the headlight. It's theirs. The keys are in the ignition. I looked at the heavy-duty pickup truck, its engine idling, its lights cutting a perfect cone in the ruined warehouse. You're on the clock, Alice said. The tranquilizer we used on them has a 12-minute active window. You have 8 minutes. Get to the truck. 8 minutes. I was a broken heap, 50 feet away. Pain is a data point. Bypass it. I took the payload from my mouth and clenched it in my good right fist. I put that hand on the floor. I put my good right knee under me, and I began to crawl. It was a journey through hell. Every movement was a negotiation with my own screaming nervous system. The concrete was a landscape of broken glass and metal shards. I dragged my useless, shattered ankle behind me. It felt like I was towing a cinder block. Move, Alice's voice said, a cold metronome in my ear. 7 minutes. I reached the truck. The door handle was at my eye level. I was a child, trying to climb into a giant's chair. I grabbed the running board with my good hand. I pulled. My shoulder screamed. I got my good knee onto the running board. I hauled myself up, a dead, broken weight, and collapsed, gasping, into the driver's seat. I was in. The keys were in the ignition. Good, Alice said. Now, the package. Load him. I stared at the windshield. What? Alice, I can't. I can barely move. My hand is useless. I'm broken. Send your people. The sniper. My Overwatch is eyes only. Jacob, she said, her voice turning to ice. They are a containment team. They are not your medics. If you fail, their orders are to sanitize this entire site. That includes you, your truck, the payload, and the 3 bodies. You are the only hand I have on the board. Get the package. 6 minutes. The threat was clear. I was still disposable. Success meant extraction. Failure meant incineration. I opened the truck door and fell back out onto the concrete. The fall, just a few feet, sent a new galaxy of pain through my body. I didn't scream. I just shut down that part of my brain. I crawled back to Mark. He was a dead weight, a 180-pound sack of unconscious flesh. I grabbed the collar of his jacket with my good hand, and I pulled. I dragged him, inch by inch, back to the truck. His heels scraped a path in the dust. My hand was raw. My entire body was a single, vibrating nerve of agony. I got him to the passenger door. How? I gasped. I can't lift him. You don't need to, Alice said. Open the door. Pull the seat back release. recline it flat, then just haul him in, like a sack of groceries. 5 minutes. I did it. I followed her instructions like a machine. I pulled the lever. The seat fell back. I got my shoulder under his armpit. I used my own broken body as a lever. He flopped, half in, half out of the cab. I climbed over him, got into the driver's seat from the passenger side, and pulled his legs in. I shoved him over. He was in. I was soaked. Not in blood. In sweat. I was shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. I put the truck in drive. My good foot found the accelerator. Payload is secure, I panted, tasting the dust. I put the USB drive from my fist into my hoodie pocket. Excellent asset, Alice's voice said. The main roll-up door is on the south wall. I've already opened it. Drive. Your new safe house is 20 minutes from here. I will guide you. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The truck's tires spun, gripped, and the vehicle lurched forward. And Jacob, Alice said, just as I aimed the truck at the sliver of pre-dawn gray I could see at the far end of the warehouse. What? Welcome to Errata. Your probation is over. I drove the truck, with my unconscious enemy in the seat beside me, past the other 2 sleeping guards and out of the smoking ruin of my own failure. I drove out, into the silent, waking city. Driving was a new dimension of agony. My good right foot worked the accelerator and brake. My good right hand gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. My left hand, the burned one, lay useless in my lap, a piece of scorched meat. My left ankle, the broken one, was a dead, heavy weight that sent a spike of pure white-hot static up my leg every time the truck hit a bump. Beside me, Mark, the Silas admin, was a comatose lump, held upright only by the seatbelt. In my ear, Alice was a cold, precise GPS. Left on India Street. Merge onto the I-195 bridge. Maintain the speed limit. You are a gray, nondescript vehicle. Do not draw attention. The pre-dawn light of Providence was turning from a deep, bruised purple to a sick, gray yellow. The city was waking up. I saw a man jogging with a golden retriever. I saw a bakery's lights click on. They were all living in the real world. The user interface. I was in the command line. A broken piece of code, driving a stolen truck, with a kidnapped enemy analyst and a world-breaking piece of data in my pocket. Probation is over, she had said. It didn't feel like a promotion. It felt like a sentence. He's stirring, I grunted. Mark, beside me, had groaned. His head lolled. His eyelids flickered. The 12-minute tranquilizer was wearing off, and the chaos of the warehouse was probably the last 10 minutes. Unacceptable, Alice's voice snapped. He cannot be conscious upon arrival. Glove compartment. Protocol C7. I fumbled, one-handed, with the glove compartment. It fell open. Inside, nestled next to the truck's manual, was a small, sealed medical kit I hadn't noticed. It contained a single, pre-filled syringe. I need to pull over, I said, my voice shaking. I can't drive and inject him. You will do both, Alice said, her voice flat. The Silas faction has already flagged this vehicle as stolen. A patrol car will be looking for it in the next 4 minutes. You will not stop, Asset. Administer the sedative. Now. Mark's eyes opened. They were foggy, confused. He saw the dashboard. He saw me. Sullivan, he mumbled. What? Where? My head. He tried to move. The seatbelt held him, but he started to struggle, his mind rebooting. My name, I growled, is Jacob. I grabbed the syringe. I took my one good hand off the steering wheel. The truck drifted, its tires hitting the rumble strip. Jacob, Alice barked. Control the vehicle. I grabbed the wheel again, correcting. Mark was trying to sit up, his hands fumbling for the door handle. I had one choice. I waited for a straight stretch of road. I held the wheel steady with my right knee. It was a clumsy, desperate move. I grabbed the syringe, uncapped it with my teeth, and with my good hand, I lunged, jabbing the needle deep into Mark's thigh, right through his jeans. He cried out, a high, thin sound. His body went rigid, his eyes wide, looking at me with a sudden, terrible clarity. Then, just as quickly, the tension flowed out of him. His eyes rolled back. He slumped against the window, unconscious again. Sedative administered, I panted, my heart hammering. I grabbed the wheel again. Dose was 500 milligrams of midazolam, Alice's voice said, as if I just told her I'd filled the gas tank. It will keep him pliable for the next hour. You are 2 blocks from the safe house. Take the next right. Enter the underground garage. Bay 27. I followed her orders. A high-end, glass and steel apartment building. The garage door rolled up as I approached. I was expected. I drove down into the clean, brightly lit garage. Bay 27 was at the far end. It was empty, save for a single, unmarked, metal door. Leave the truck, Alice commanded. A Silas low-level asset will find it here in about an hour. They will retrieve the truck, and nothing else. They will assume their boss is dead and the asset, you, are long gone. It's a neat little bit of misinformation. Bring the prisoner and the payload. I killed the engine. The silence was deafening. Alice, I said, my voice breaking. I told you, I'm broken. I can't carry him. I know, she said. The metal door to Bay 27 hissed open. A woman stood there. She was in a perfectly tailored, razor-sharp black pantsuit. Short, dark, severe hair. She held a tablet in one hand and had a small, clear earpiece in her ear. She looked like a high-powered CEO, not a spy. She looked at me, her eyes a flat, analytical gray. She was the voice. She was Alice. Her gaze swept over me, from my matted hair, to my burned hand, to my blood-soaked pant leg. She wrinkled her nose, a flicker of distaste. You look, she said, her voice the same as in my ear, precisely as bad as your vitals indicated. You also reek of ozone and burnt plastic. 2 men in clean, white medical scrubs, pushing a gurney, walked out from behind her. They didn't even look at me. They moved to the passenger side of the truck, opened the door, and with an efficient, practiced motion, transferred Mark's unconscious body to the gurney. They strapped him down. Alice. I started. You're Jacob, she said, cutting me off. She wasn't asking. She was telling me. The payload, I said. I reached into my hoodie pocket and pulled out the silver USB drive. I held it out to her in my good, shaking hand. Alice didn't take it. She just looked at it. Good. Now you. The medics rolled the gurney with Mark through the door. Alice turned to follow. Come along, Jacob. We have work to do. What is this place? I limped, dragging myself out of the truck. Recalibration, she said. You're a valuable asset. We don't throw assets away. We just fix their bugs. I followed her. The door led to a private elevator. It opened into a penthouse. But it wasn't a home. It was a sterile, white, hyper-modern clinic, disguised as a luxury apartment, high above the city. In here, she said, pointing to a room. It was a fully equipped operating theater. Sit on the table. Dr. Eris will rebuild you. A man in a surgical mask nodded to me. Alice, the payload. I said, still holding the drive. We'll get to that, she said. She finally took the drive from me, but with a pair of sterile tweezers from a tray. You did well, Jacob. You secured the primary intelligence. The worm. Alice almost smiled. The worm was irrelevant. The drive was a tracker. We needed to see who it led you to. And now. She nodded toward the room where they'd taken Mark. We have him. The primary source. And you are going to help me extract what he knows. Me, I said, as the doctor began to cut the ruined, blood-caked fabric of my pants away from my broken ankle. Yes, Alice said, turning to leave. Get him stabilized, doctor. I want him lucid in 1 hour. We have an interrogation to conduct. Why me? I called out, as the doctor prepared a needle. Alice paused at the door. Because, Jacob, you're the ghost. You're the man they erased, the man who came back from the dead. You're the only person he's afraid of right now. She looked me over, a tool in a repair shop. Fear is a magnificent key. The hour wasn't a time of healing. It was a factory refit. Dr. Eris was silent, efficient, and brutal. He didn't ask me what hurt. His instruments already knew. My ruined pant leg was cut away. My ankle, a swollen, purple mass, was examined. Compound fracture of the left fibula, he stated to no one, his voice muffled by his mask. He's not walking on this. He will be, Alice's voice replied, not from the room, but from an intercom on the wall. Dr. Eris just nodded. He set the bone. The pain was a blinding, white flash. I screamed, or maybe I just bit through my tongue. I couldn't tell. He didn't wait. He produced a device, a high-tech, carbon fiber framework. It wasn't a cast. It was an exoskeleton. A brace that locked around my calf and foot, with mechanical joints at the ankle. He tightened it, and I felt a cold, hard stability. The pain was still there, a wildfire, but it was contained. My burned hand was next. He debrided it, a new, agonizing fire. He didn't wrap it in gauze. He sprayed it with a clear, synthetic gel that hissed as it made contact. It formed a second skin, a bioactive, polymer seal. My fingers were stiff, but the raw, open-air agony was gone. Then, the needle. What is that? I rasped, my voice hoarse. Recalibration, Dr. Eris said. He slid the needle into my neck. It wasn't a painkiller, not in the traditional sense. It didn't make me drowsy. It did what Alice said. It bypassed. The pain didn't vanish. It just moved. I could feel it, a distant, screaming signal, but it was no longer my signal. It was data I could ignore. In its place, a cold, sharp, synthetic focus flooded my brain. I was alert. I was awake. I was operational. Dr. Eris stepped back. He's stabilized. He has a 90-minute window before the femoral nerve block wears off. After that, he will experience systemic shock. 90 minutes is all I need, Alice's voice replied. A clean, black uniform, identical to the one I'd ruined, was placed on the table. Dress, the intercom commanded. I did. I stood up. My left leg was stiff, the brace making my walk a heavy, mechanical stomp. My left hand was a shiny, sealed claw. I was a broken tool, repaired with duct tape and superglue, sent back into the fight. Alice was waiting for me in the main room. She was holding a single, small, clear earpiece. Mark is awake, she said. He is secured in the observation room. He is disoriented. What did you do to him? Nothing, she said. Yet. We simply let the Silas system's internal trackers inform his superiors that his biometric signal has terminated. As far as Silas is concerned, Mark, and this entire node, was destroyed in a catastrophic power surge. The same one you caused. As of 20 minutes ago, Mark doesn't exist. He's a ghost. Just like you. She had erased him. She had used my story as a template. He's a high-level admin, Alice continued, her gray eyes analytical. He has information. Silas has been moving data, preparing for an operation codenamed Project Sundown. I need to know what that is. His technical defenses are too strong for a simple chemical interrogation. So what's the plan? I asked. You are the plan, she said, holding the earpiece out. A system admin like Mark fears one thing, a code he can't control. An anomaly. A rogue variable. That's you, Jacob. You are the ghost in his machine. He's an analyst. He'll try to reason with me. He'll lie. He'll build firewalls. But he can't build a firewall against a man who walked out of his own deletion. She placed the earpiece in my good ear. Put this in. I will be in your ear. I will hear everything. I will prompt you. But you will do the talking. You are the psychological weapon. You are the Errata. I settled the device in my ear. Her voice was suddenly inside my head. Audio link established. The payload, I said, remembering the drive. You said it wasn't the worm. It wasn't, she said, tapping her own tablet. The worm was a distraction. The real code on that drive was a handshake query. The moment you plugged it in, it asked Mark's server one question. Who are you? And Mark's server, it answered. It gave us its core identification key, its network architecture, and a list of every other Silas admin in this hemisphere. The worm failed, but the mission was a total success. Mark gave us his entire faction's address book without ever knowing it. He is redundant. Project Sundown is the last piece of data I need from him. She led me to a white, featureless door. He won't fear me. I'm just another analyst. But you're an impossibility. Show him what a real ghost looks like. The door hissed open. The room was white, blindingly white. There was no furniture, save for a single, heavy, metal chair in the dead center. Mark was strapped into it. He was dressed in a simple, gray-white tunic. His head was shaved. He looked sanitized, processed. He was awake. His eyes were wide, darting, filled with a primal, animal terror. He had gone from being a system admin, a king in his own castle, to being a specimen in a lab. I stepped into the room. The door hissed shut behind me. I walked, my braced foot making a heavy, solid thud, clack, thud, clack on the sterile floor. I stopped just outside the main circle of light, my face in shadow, my ruined bio-gelled hand held at my side. Mark strained against his restraints. Who's there? What do you want? I'm an American citizen. I have rights. Rights are a feature of the system you were just logged out of, Mark, I said. My voice was a low, gravelly rasp. Mark froze. He knew the voice. He looked into the shadows, his eyes struggling to focus. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, it can't be. You're dead. You were in the container. It fell. No one could survive that. I took one more step into the light. I let him see me. The ruined hand. The mechanical, limping walk. The dead, cold, analytical eyes. The Errata system has a very different definition of survival, Mark, I said. His professional arrogance was gone. His composure was shattered. He was looking at a man who had literally walked out of the grave he had been put in. What are you? He stammered. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. I'm the error you couldn't correct. And I'm here to debug the system. Starting with you. Mark's terror was a tangible thing. It was cold sweat and the whites of his eyes. He wasn't afraid of a man. He was afraid of a bug in his reality. I was a logic bomb, and I was sitting right in front of him. This is impossible, he kept mumbling, straining against the thick, polymer restraints. The physics, the impact, you're a dead asset. My system reported you as terminated. Your system was wrong, I said, my voice flat. I limped around him, the thud clack of my braced leg the only sound in the sterile white room. My system is better. Good, Jacob, Alice's voice whispered in my earpiece. You're not a person. You are a superior technology. Establish that. I stopped in front of him. I raised my left hand, the one Dr. Eris had sealed in the black, glistening biogel. It was a monstrous, inhuman claw. They did this to me, I said, holding the hand up for him to see. When the card I used shorted your grid, they recalibrated me. Mark stared at the hand, his eyes wide with a mix of horror and professional curiosity. The analyst in him couldn't help it. What is that? A polymer, a conductive bioseal. It's a patch, I said. A bug fix. The Errata system doesn't delete errors, Mark. It corrects them. It upgrades them. I let the implication hang in the air. I was what happened to a failed asset. I was made better, stronger. What do you want? He panted. I want the same thing you wanted from me, I said. I want to know what you know. I want to know why you were so desperate to get that drive. The drive, the worm. He stammered, his eyes darting. The analyst was rebooting, his fear being overwritten by calculation. He was trying to find a foothold. It was a weapon. We needed to analyze it, to create a defense. A lie, I said, the word a dull thud. He's lying, Jacob, Alice's voice confirmed. He's building a firewall. Tear it down. He didn't want the drive to defend against it. He wanted it to use it. You wanted to use it, I said, echoing her. You wanted the Errata code for yourselves. No, we are a check, a balance, against them. Against you. They're the monsters. They delete people. I laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound that surprised even me. They delete people. Look at yourself, Mark. Your faction, Silas, already believes you're dead. They've written you off. Erased. Deleted. You're me from 2 days ago. The only difference is, my system came back for me. The blood drained from his face. He knew it was true. He had seen his own system's protocols. He knew what a terminated asset meant. You're a ghost, Mark, I leaned in. Just like me. But your system isn't coming for you. What do you want? He whispered, his last wall of defense crumbling. Project Sundown, I said. Mark's entire body went rigid. It was a full body flinch. That was the word. That was the core file. I don't know what that is. He's lying, Alice said. The payload you retrieved, the handshake data, it's all over his server logs. He's the lead analyst on it. Break him. I slammed my good right fist on the metal arm of his chair. The bang echoed in the small, white room. Mark jumped, his eyes full of panic. "Don't lie to me," I roared, letting the cold, synthetic rage flood in. "I've been in your system. I've seen the files. Project Sundown. You're the lead architect. How could you? My system was quarantined. You were." "I was a distraction," I shouted. "While you were chasing me, the Errata worm was already in. It wasn't a failure, Mark. It was a success. While you were playing hero in the warehouse, my system was downloading your entire core. We have it all. This was the final move. The checkmate." I was lying, of course. Alice had said the worm had failed. But Mark didn't know that. He stared at me, his mind racing, processing the new, terrible data. He saw his own failure. He saw the end of his faction. He broke. It's not a weapon," he whispered, his head slumping. Not a bomb. What is it?" I demanded. It's a key," he said, the words spilling out. "Silas, we're not like Errata. We don't have their resources. We can't edit the world. We can't just create a Jacob Harlow out of thin air. We're scavengers." "Go on," Alice's voice urged. "He's unpacking. Let him run." "Go on," I said. "Project Sundown, it's a protocol. A dead man's switch. The global financial system, the one Errata, and your old firm, Fin & Secure, are built on, it's a house of cards. It's all just data. We found the root. The central node that controls the entire grid. The master on-off switch for the whole thing." My blood went cold. Michael Sullivan, the systems analyst, understood exactly what he was saying. "You're talking about a global zero-day exploit," I whispered, horrified. "We call it Sundown," Mark said, his voice hollow. "If Errata ever tries to wipe us out, if they try to delete Silas as a faction, we flip the switch. We turn off the sun. We hit delete on the whole world. The stock market, the banks, the power grid, the medical records, everything. Back to zero. Correction." He was using their word. Correction. "Errata thinks they're the only ones who can reset a file," he said, a new, fanatic light in his eyes. "We're going to show them we can reset the whole drive." My God, this was insanity. This was global, mutual assured destruction, but for data. When? Alice's voice was sharp, a sliver of ice in my ear. "When is it active?" "When?" I demanded. "When does it go live?" It's already live," Mark said, with a terrifying broken smile. "The protocol is automated. The moment my biometric signal terminated, the 24-hour countdown began." I stared at him. "What? The system thinks I'm dead. It thinks Errata got me. The failsafe is active. The world, our world, it all ends in..." He looked at the wall, as if he could see a clock. "About 22 hours. He started to laugh. A high, broken, hysterical cackle. He was a dead man who had just taken the entire world hostage with him. Mark's hysterical laughter echoed in the sterile, white room. It was the sound of a system that had found an unresolvable, catastrophic error and had defaulted to a core dump. He was a zealot who had just pulled the pin on a global grenade. He was proud. I stood there, my mechanical, braced leg locked, my good hand clenched into a fist. My entire, reconstructed reality was tilting. From a personal erasure to a global one. I put my finger to my earpiece. "Alice, did you get that? 22 hours. There was no reply. For a long, terrifying second, there was nothing but static. I was offline again, abandoned. Then, her voice. It wasn't calm. It wasn't cold. It was gone. It was replaced by a digitized, inhuman, all-caps voice. The voice of the Errata OS itself. Alert. Threat level, Omega. Project Sundown, verified. Protocol active. Time to execution, 21 hours 58 minutes and 14 seconds. The voice was coming from every speaker in the room. Alice's human-level control had just been revoked. The main system was now in charge. The door behind me hissed open. Alice was standing there, her face pale, her tablet in a white-knuckle grip. The system voice had come from her device as well. "He's not bluffing," she said, her professional mask cracked. She was looking at her tablet, at a flood of data I couldn't see. Mark's biometric termination, the one we faked, it was the primary key. It's not a program, Jacob. It's a cascade. A self-replicating worm, just as he said. It's already burrowed into the Swift and DNS root servers. It's not attacking. It's just waiting. Waiting for the final broadcast. The go command. 22 hours, I repeated. Turn it off. We can't, Alice snapped, walking into the room. The worm's encryption is, it's not like ours. It's not Errata code. It's chaos. It's designed to look like random data corruption. We can't even find the whole thing. Dr. Eris and the two medics reappeared. They weren't here for me. They unstrapped Mark, who was still cackling, and hauled his limp, sedated body out of the chair. What are you doing? I asked. Moving to the primary node, Alice said. We're done here. This clinic is compromised. Get him. They dragged Mark into the main room, which I now saw was not a penthouse. It was a high-tech war room. The minimalist art on the walls had retracted, revealing floor-to-ceiling monitors. One giant, central screen showed a map of the world. But it wasn't a map of countries. It was a map of data, and it was blinking. Red, pulsing nodes were appearing, one by one, in London, New York, Tokyo, Frankfurt. The worm, I whispered, the analyst in me taking over. It's replicating. It's planting the seeds. Exactly, Alice said. The Sundown broadcast will hit all those nodes at once. It's not a reset, Jacob. It's a format. It will wipe the global financial and logistical grid back to the Stone Age. Errata has contingencies, offline backups, parallel networks, but 99% of the world does not. This is an extinction-level event. Mark was strapped into a new chair, this one in front of a terminal. He was awake, his head high, a martyr's smile on his face. Beautiful, isn't it? You can't stop it. You erased me. You erased yourselves. You lose. Shut up, Alice snarled. She was genuinely angry. The mask was gone. Turn it off, Mark. We can restore your identity. We can give you anything. A new life. A real one. What life? He laughed. In the rubble. No. I'm good. I'd rather watch it all burn. I'm the man who finally corrected the Errata system. He was a zealot. He was unbreakable. I looked at the map. I looked at Mark. I looked at Alice. They were both operators. They saw a war. I was an analyst. I saw a system. He's wrong, I said. Alice and Mark both turned to look at me. What? Alice said. You're a fool, Mark, I said, my voice low. I limped toward the main screen, my braced foot making its heavy thud-clack sound. You're a sloppy analyst. You didn't run the scenario to its conclusion. What are you talking about? Mark stammered, his smugness faltering. This, I said, pointing my good hand at the global map. You see all this? The grid. This is the public world. This is the world Errata lets us use. I turned to him. You really think Errata keeps its own data, its core systems, on the same network as a bank in Ohio? You think they're that stupid? Mark's smile vanished. I've seen their safe houses, Mark. I lied, but it felt true. They run on a parallel, sand-gapped, dark network. Sundown won't touch them. It can't. Your worm, it's a format for the public drive. Errata's drive is in a different machine. I saw the blood drain from his face. He hadn't considered it. You're not leveling the playing field, I said, pressing the advantage, the words coming fast. You're just cleaning the house for them. You're wiping out all their competition. You're erasing Silas. You're erasing the entire global infrastructure. You're not resetting the world, Mark. You're handing Errata the keys to an empty, silent, obedient planet. You're not their executioner. You're their janitor. No, Mark whispered. No. Our models, Your models were wrong. I shouted. You didn't have the whole picture. Your dead man switch isn't a threat. It's a gift. It's the ultimate Errata. And you're the one who pulled the trigger. He was broken. His life's work. His glorious martyrdom. It was all a lie. A bug in his own logic. Alice, I said, turning to her. The countdown. How do we stop it? Alice was looking at me with a new expression. Not as an asset. As an equal. Ask him, she said. I turned back to Mark. He was shaking, a man whose entire religion had just been disproven. Mark. The broadcast. The final command. Where is it coming from? It's not a program, he stammered, his voice a child's. It's not on a server. You can't hack it. Then where? It's physical, he whispered. It's not on the grid. It's in the sky. A cold, perfect silence filled the room. A satellite, Alice said. Mark nodded, his eyes dead. An old, decommissioned Cold War bird. Silas retrofitted it. It's in a decaying, polar orbit. Dark. Untraceable. The broadcast. I said. It's a pulse, Mark choked out. A single, high-frequency data burst. In 21 hours and 32 minutes, it will hit its peak orbit. It will broadcast the Go command. It will hit every infected node on Earth at the same time. You can't stop the broadcast. Then we stopped the satellite, I said. Alice was already at her terminal, her fingers flying. We can't. There's no launch window. We can't get a kinetic strike team, a missile, up there in time. There's no way to reach it. I looked at the map. I looked at the ticking clock. 21:31:45. We don't have to reach it, I said. Alice stopped typing. She looked at me. You said it yourself, Alice, I said, my mind, the analyst's mind, finally seeing the whole board. You erase things. I erase things. Errata, Silas, we're all just running the same code. I turned to her. You can't hack the satellite. You can't shoot the satellite. So, you have to erase it. A slow, cold, terrifying smile spread across Alice's face. She understood. Jacob, she said, I think it's time you met the rest of the team.